We live? We're in this haunted house. Everything is going haywire. It's unbelievable. If you've made it to this broadcast, chances are you probably suspect you already occupy the inverted world. The inverted world is what happens when you begin to see facets of reality that other people refuse to see or even mock you for seeing. The inverted world is when the curtain is pulled all the way back, revealing all of the strange and absurd and dark machinations that operate in the shadows of reality. And this is the place where we're going to talk about it all. There's a lot going on in this room. I can't even begin to tell you. We're going to get into that in a minute. But I'm very glad you're here joining us for this debut episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is Inverted World Live. Welcome back to Inverted World Live. It is so good to finally be here. I am Shane Cashman. I'm your host. I am joined by my producer, Alex.
Hey, Shane. Good to see you.
Has this room been haunting you at all?
Oh, my God. For the last couple of hours. Yes, it has.
Everything kind of went haywire right before we went live. Cameras were going crazy. I think ghosts were reaching through the electricity to just haunt this room and make it very special. They want to let us know that they're here. The one ghost is named Sherwood.
Oh, yeah.
I believe he's from the Civil War.
Definitely with us.
But we're going to get into that and all these ghosts that occupy this place. And for those who don't know, Alex was the sound designer and editor for all the Inverted World seasons that were narrated and illustrated on YouTube and on Timcast. So she had seen all the investigations through the Long Island serial killer, alien abductions, simulation theory for the past 2 seasons. And now we got her in the corner over here. I'm very happy to have you.
Vibing for a little while now.
And joining us tonight is our very special guest, Tim Poole.
How's it going?
What's good?
This is literally a haunted house.
Dude.
It was built in like the 1840s or something.
Yep.
The ceilings are, I think, 6.5 feet for
Yep.
like 6.5. People were short back then.
Yes.
And everyone's been complaining about weird goings on in this building.
Yeah.
And I was like, Shane, this is fantastic. You're shooting on live on location in a haunted house, like perfect setting.
This is just how I grew up, so I'm used to it.
I just want to point out you're mentioning these weird things that are going on, but I'm just going to jump right to it. I walk in here like an hour ago. I'm like, hey, I'm with Allison. How are things going? And then the cameras don't work.
Nope.
And the crew is like, we think the video card fell out of the computer.
Yep.
I went, what? I was like, no, that's not a thing that happens. And they're like, yeah, it fell. I'm like, it fell out?
Yep.
Well,
Okay,
then
the ghost didn't want the show to happen.
Dude, the ghost
camera wasn't working.
Well, so let's rewind just a bit, because as we've been preparing this studio, there's been other coworkers coming through here and saying we're hearing really weird sounds in the walls.
The vent was on in the bathroom when I got here.
Yeah, there's different, and I want to say I grew up in what I believe to be a haunted house, built in the 1700s, made of stone, and we had strange sounds there. We had, if you remember, I was born in '85, so we had a lot of Magnavox televisions growing up, and on those TVs, if you had it on channel 3, like on the blank screen, there was a hum that would happen throughout the house. Oh yeah, that would happen in our house without the TV being on. So it was like I'm always associating technology and the ghosts reaching through it to talk to you. I haven't experienced that yet in this house or the sounds, but everything that was like all these hiccups that we had ironed out before we went live for weeks, everything was fine. Literally the moment we stepped into this room, it went, and we're like,
like there's an arm that fell off. What happened?
The camera
wouldn't adjust itself.
Tim's camera was perfect, and then 20 minutes ago, the arm just went.
Yep, but not come back up.
And this is brand new. This is brand new stuff. So this house is gonna be fun.
So this house was abandoned
for how long?
I found a Doom floppy disk.
Okay, so we're gonna trace it back.
Might be like 30 years.
A lot of people don't know what a floppy disk is.
Yeah, true. Or Doom. I hope they know what Doom is.
The 3-inch floppy.
Do you believe in ghosts? How are you? Where are you on ghosts?
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't believe ghosts are people who died.
What do you think they are?
I think, based on what we know about science, I should say what we think we know. There's a couple possible explanations. Extra-dimensional beings.
Mm-hmm.
So I have two hypotheses as to what ghost phenomenon really is. The first is that there are entities that perceive 5 dimensions the way we perceive 4. So we can freely manipulate 3 dimensions. We can move back, front, forward, backward, left, right, up, and down. But the 4th dimension, time, we can't. We're free falling through. Yep. So imagine if you fell into a hole. You can't control that you're falling down. So that's effectively what time is to us. There are beings that exist in 5 dimensions. They can freely manipulate the 4th, which is time. So if you're able to do that, that means if you are looking at a human, you could actually see them in a single point of time unmoved, and they could never see you because you would always just choose not to be in their field of vision. They're freely moving through other dimension. It's like they move through the past behind us. They move through the future in front of us, and we can never see them because they just avoid those places. And this is a bit of a sillier idea, but some of these entities, why are old houses always haunted? Why is it that the old house is haunted?
Well, but I think your ghost just keeps coming, like it just keeps cycling.
Well, think about it this way. If a being could move through time as though it was space, a very old building is a very large building. So think about years as rooms. A 200-year-old building is effectively 200 rooms you can occupy. So these interdimensional beings prefer to live in buildings that have been for a very, very, very long time. It's a big place. And so, there's these 2 interdimensional beings, maybe they have 4 arms or whatever, and they're like, hey, Glack, go back to 1976 and get me a pib or a tab. And then he's like, okay. And then he walks to 1976, grabs a tab, and then the person in that time goes, where's my soda? It's gone.
Right.
And he bumps a lamp on his way, and then he's like, ah.
Are you saying these are separate entities altogether that exist in another dimension? Could they have been people that then, when they die, exist in these other dimensions?
No, I don't think it's people when they die. But I have a better theory. That one's more silly. That one's fun.
It's kind of like an alien or something.
Yeah, interdimensional, extra-dimensional beings. I think a more functional hypothesis is that if M theory is true, which membrane theory, so you've got string theory, becomes M theory, and you can imagine the universe as this weird multi-dimensional, I think, what are we up to, 13 dimensions? I don't even know how many dimensions they've had in M theory.
Depends which magazines you read.
Just imagine there's this gigantic fabric that's waving and floating around and bouncing around, and that's all of these different dimensions, and we occupy a small pocket of it, which is 4 dimensions. Some have said that basically there's a thin layer of this membrane where a hole was punched and it's filling with matter, and that's the Big Bang. That's the expansion of the universe. So we're just in this bubble. So what might ghosts be? If you go way down to our little bubble pocket, the fabric is moving around like the cloth and brushing past itself. So there's and so why is it older buildings that are more likely to be haunted? Because there's more opportunity for the fabric of the universe to pass through itself. So what happens? A guy in 1860 builds a house, and he's one day, upstairs grabbing a book from his bookshelf, and then he turns around and he sees a strange figure, semi-transparent, wearing strange clothes he's never seen, and it looks him in the eyes and goes, "Aah!" And then he just drops the book and screams, and he goes, "This place is cursed."
Right.
He then writes down, "This place is cursed." He tells everybody, and they say, "Oh, the old house is haunted. There must be demons and spirits." Now that legend has persisted, but what really happened? Fast forward to 2012, let's say 2024, and some dude setting up a podcast, and he walks in, and he looks in the room, and he sees this old 1850s guy holding a book, and he looks at him and stares him in the eyes, and then Shane goes, "Ah!" and screams. And so what's actually happening is the fabric of time folds on itself briefly, and it brushes past, and so these two beings who are in their own time stream flicker past each other, and in a brief moment believe each other was the ghost they saw. The guy in the past writes down, "This place is haunted." Shane then thinks this house is haunted and comes here and then fulfills the prophecy of being the ghost seen by the guy in the past.
This is kind of, I've experienced something what I think might be like that in real life, where I was growing up in the haunted house I told you about that I spent my whole life in. I used to be haunted by a shadow at night.
Like the man in the black hat or something.
Exactly. We thought it was Hat Man when we did that story for the first season in Vertiworld, but I don't know what it was. I think it was me, because I'm possibly meeting my interdimensional other. So when I was a baby, up until probably 6 or 7, I would scream about this hand shadow in the corner of the room, and it freaked me out, and it would always be there. and we would look up for anything that could make anything that shape on the wall. Never found it, and kind of went away after a time. Moved back home many years later. I have a child now because we're looking for our next place to live, and I'm sleeping in that bedroom that used to be my childhood bedroom, playing shadow puppets with my hands, and there on the wall was my hand, just the way I saw it when I was a baby in that room. So it was almost like a prediction,
and that
or time
that
folding.
time
Right.
in that dimension is waving around and just brushes past, and you
Right.
saw a shadow on the
So I
wall.
think your concept is one way of looking at it, and probably one of the many layers of ghosts, because I also think that the possibility of people being ghosts is something too, which I think one of our first callers is going to be about, and our first article we'll pull up about time traveling ghosts. But before we look at that, can we actually show the people the live stream of our house?
Sure.
Oh, Tim doesn't know about this. We have a live stream of the haunted house. That's it right there, everyone. It's very realistic drone footage of our live stream of the house.
Shane, that looks like your old house in New York.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
yep.
lie.
I wish this house was that big.
That's that house. I hope everyone sees a spider crawling on the roof. Very realistic. But anyway, time traveling ghosts. I think ghosts have many different reasons. I think they could be people that passed away and try to reconnect with you.
That's what I imagine.
But I think it's interdimensional species or entities as well that could be calling out. So there was this article recently written. Do we have it pulled up, Alex?
Which one?
From the Irish Times. This is a good one because I like the Irish. The Irish are very good about writing about dead people. If you've ever read anything by the Irish, James Joyce, or my favorite book, The Dirty Dust, which takes place in a cemetery, where all the dead are always talking from their graves and looking for the gossip until someone else appears. I'm just pulling up on my...
You might want to come into the frame a little bit more, though.
Oh, yeah. My screen
We're all
is
learning.
like a coffin for me to pull up. So here we go. From the Irish Star, ghosts can time travel and get trapped in places where evil has happened. Expert says. Now, I love that expert. Who's the expert in evil and
Must be a
time traveling
medium.
ghosts? But
What does it define what the expertise is?
yeah, we're gonna get into that. Paranormal author and podcaster. So there you go.
Oh,
So I guess I'm an expert. I guess you're an expert. Jim Harold believes that ghosts can time travel and become trapped in locations where evil events have occurred. In his latest book, True Ghost Stories, Jim delves into spine-chilling stories of UFOs and eerie creatures. It appears, he says, humans have this ability to transcend physical constraints of geography when the chips are down. He further adds, I believe it speaks to the amazing properties of the human spirit and that our consciousness is not simply a brain and a skull, but something that can tap into a universal consciousness of some sort, which to me sounds like some neural link. So when I asked you about ghosts earlier, have you had any encounters with a ghost or what you believe to be an interdimensional species in a house or somewhere?
when I was younger, I had there were 3 instances. It was my old house in Chicago. One was we had this futon bunk bed thing. Mm-hmm. The first the bottom is a futon that can fold out, and the top was a bunk. And so I'm sleeping. I must have been 14. How old was I? Where was I? No, I must have been like 12 or 13. I'm sleeping on my left side, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and the room is lights are off and everything, but there's like I'm laying down and I look up, and the room has a glow to it, like there's some screen on or something. We didn't have the iPads or anything back then, so like the TV was on, TV was not on. I roll over and look on the floor, and on the floor I see what looks like. You ever see water reflected on a ceiling? Mm-hmm. Imagine that,
like rippling light.
The rippling light. Imagine that in the shape, in like a blob-like shape, and 20 times as bright, with different colors on the floor, and moving around as if it was like a reflection of water.
Right.
And then I immediately rolled back. So the futon is at a slight angle like this,
Yep.
and like that.
Yep.
And so I immediately roll back over to the other side and just like pull the covers over, and I just close my eyes. And no idea. I don't know.
Interesting.
I wasn't dreaming. I've never had sleep paralysis.
Huh.
Effective.
I when I wake up, I'm awake. Like, no idea.
Nothing ever again?
And so that was that one.
Yep.
There was another instance where the water, the basement sink in my house turned on by itself. Upstairs,
Where
went
is this?
downstairs.
This is
in
back in
Chicago.
Chicago?
Same house.
Yep.
And some guy died in the house. So everyone always like, ooh, it's a ghost.
Yep.
And then there was another instance where no one was home. And I woke up at like 3 a.m. to the sound of someone walking through the house and doing something in the kitchen. And I how old was I? This was when I was pretty young. And so I looked over, through the door was open to my bedroom, and like a silhouette was walking through my kitchen, and that was just it. It was like I could hear like footsteps and movements, and then I looked and I saw the silhouette of a dark figure, and that one's, who knows?
Do you get nervous like when that happened? Like, do you remember
When I was a little kid? Yeah, I got scared.
chills and like the temperature?
I rolled over
like
and pulled the blanket over my head, and I was like,
with the figure too.
With the
figure, like that's
yeah,
like people
course.
talk about things like that, and they say the temperature decreased, or you know.
I didn't notice anything like that.
Yeah.
And then there were other stories that my family had. I don't know exactly what their stories were or anything, but it was an old lady who lived there, and we bought it off. I guess her husband died, and so there was like, ooh, it's haunted. You know what I mean?
Right. Alex, do you have any stories with the?
I wish they would haunt me.
Well, today you do. As of today, you certainly do.
Definitely.
And the reason I want to get to our first caller soon, but I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of this article in the Irish Star. I'm thinking of what people like to refer to as the stone tape theory. You know about that?
No, what is that?
Where a traumatic event, like a horror or an evil, is somehow transmitted into a physical object like a stone. Although people in stone tape theory can get real wild and think even a screw in a chair could absorb the ghost or the death, the horror. And I think about that in this house, honestly. And I thought about it growing up where I live, because there was a young boy who was murdered by his brother in the house I grew up on.
Whoa.
And which is what I used to think the shadow was, until I thought maybe it was just me. But who knows? But real quick, that story is Super Bowl Sunday, 1979. These two boys are home alone, and their parents are out at a party for the Super Bowl. The older brother wants to scare the younger brother, and he gets his father's rifle and says to his friend who's there with him, I'm going to scare Jimmy, the little brother. So they go and find Jimmy in the playroom, which is in this house where I grew up. It's the house is built into a hill, so the bottom half of the house is kind of like a mausoleum, because it's like you're underground and it's moist all the time and chilly. He's there, and they pull the trigger when they say boo, and the trigger they fire the gun and kill the boy right there. And if you read Inverted World 1, you'll see this whole investigation I did into that story, and they kind of covered it up because it was on a military base, and no one knew what happened. But I always thought that perhaps that traumatic event was captured in that house, kind of like the way it feels when you go through a Civil War battlefield or an old battlefield where, you know, like if you go to Antietam, which isn't far, a lot of people died there, and it could just be you projecting these feelings onto the place.
But did he shoot his brother in the head?
That's a good point. I don't know.
Because
there was no reports. I couldn't even find hospital reports because they got rid of everything. And I went to the Pentagon for this.
I'm imagining like what his little brother sitting on a couch, and then he sneaks up on him and goes, boo. And then when he turns, he pulls the trigger.
Ooh, I see what you're saying, because you're thinking of the traumatic part of it. Right. To
Where's
be released.
the trauma?
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
So the traumatic energy could be the brother who killed his younger brother, not the younger brother who died.
And the rumor was, because I couldn't find the brother either, I only found his grave. There's literally no stories about this family.
Covered it up.
Yeah, well, I know they covered it up. I went and found the microfilm finally at a library, and I found the article that said a boy had been shot. This is before he passed away. He didn't pass away immediately, so maybe that could answer the trauma
there's
part.
more to the story too about where they got the ammo.
They were I forget about that.
Near a military base.
It was near a military base, but they were making their own ammo, if I remember correctly.
Something like they were gathering the spent casings.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's another story in the same time that they covered up that story, because there's a boy who actually lost his leg or something. You got to read. I forget the name of it, but it's in season 1 on this YouTube page. And it happened on West Point, which is a military base, and they covered this up. And on the microfilm, all I could find is the boy was shot. And other than that, family moved after the boy died. The military base had like the Pentagon will have the paperwork. They had nothing. There's no
What
report.
if ghosts? So every person, your body is ensouled, and you have a time frame for which your soul lives and your body lives. But if your body is taken sooner, the spiritual component is on Earth for let's say your spiritual life is 75 years,
Right.
and your body is supposed to last you as long, but someone gets shot at 15 years old.
It's like unfinished
There's
business.
60 years of spirit.
So it's like a husk left that a cicada would leave on the tree.
The body,
the body
collapses, unusable.
Right.
But the spirit is now aimlessly wandering for the 60 years.
Well, the movie A Ghost Story, it's an A24 film
Yeah.
with Casey Affleck.
Yep.
They kind of with this article you just pulled up, it's kind of like that like the ghost, he dies and then he comes back to his home, but it goes to different generations, like in the future and in the past, and he's just cycling through time, and he even sees himself before he's dead. So it kind of like plays with that idea.
Yeah, I think that there's one aspect of what ghosts and hauntings could be. And I want to get to our first caller, Jessica, but I've experienced the dead, the recently dead, what I believe to be a ghost, trying to talk to me. And that's when my grandfather passed away, and I was helping my grandma. She's all alone. I'm in Florida, in this house that was built in the 80s or early 90s. Never had any weird things happen in that house, nothing. And the day before I was leaving, about a week after the funeral, it was just me and her. I'm helping her get set up with her life to be alone now. And I was woken up really early before the sunrise, and I just felt like I had to sit in the chair in the living room. And all of a sudden, the button to the ceiling fan started moving and turning on, and the ceiling fan would go to high, medium, low. I'd never experienced anything like that. And I'm watching this happen, and I just instantly knew that's my grandfather telling me, like, I'm here, it's gonna be all right.
See, I feel like I have to believe that, like, ghosts or dead people giving you signs.
I think
that's the only way I can.
I think that's one aspect, but I think there's probably a lot of interdimensional
How brutal would it be
too.
if it's like some hobo interdimensional being like, "Hey Jim, watch this."
He thinks it's his grandfather.
Well, you know what? But speaking, Happy Mother's Day to everybody out there.
That's right.
But James Vanderbeek, the actor, he tells an awesome Mother's Day. Well,
Yes.
it's really kind of sad actually, but he tells a Mother's Day story that happened. I think he talked about it last year, where his mother died in July of 2020.
Yep.
And before she died, she gifted the family candles with a note that said, "To my angels." And then when his wife, like shortly after that, his wife was giving birth to like their sixth kid. I don't know. They have a lot of kids. And I think she was doing a home birth. And they were burning those candles that the mother gave them.
Right.
When the candles like got down like really low, it was going to drip on the wood. And I think someone like blew them out.
Yep.
The wax went right onto the mirror and created an angel-like figure.
Whoa.
But it's not just that. It actually, there's video of it. It created the figure exactly that his mom's pose was in her photo that was on the stand.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, and it sounds ridiculous, but
Wait,
he's
splattering wax.
Yes.
splattering wax on the
Like
mirror.
A human could not even do that.
Right.
and it's thick too.
She's bent a certain way and a dress, and there's even details in the background of the photo that are also in the wax melting below the figure. So it's interesting.
There's also just I won't go on a tangent, but
Yeah.
there's like this story I was reading recently where a little kid was driving with his parents, and then he looked down the road and says, "I used to go to school there." And he's like 5, and they're like, "When did you go to school there?" And he was like, "In my past life," or he didn't say. He said something like, "When I was George," or something like this. And they were like, "What?"
Yep.
And then he says the name of the school, and they were like, "Who told you this?" And they looked it up, and there was a guy named. They found the person, they found the school, and
I think.
but there's a bunch of stories
Why
like
do
that.
kids have more of like an?
I think because their innocence.
No, but that
thins
kid
the
was
veil.
saying when I was
Like
George,
he was the guy.
like he was
kid.
reborn.
I think of that. Oh yeah, it could be that. I think of it as like fingerprints of memory getting passed through the DNA.
Well, they also
like
say
ancestral
that
DNA.
yes. When you're in the womb, you
Right.
take on other trauma.
but he wasn't related to the guy.
Oh, he wasn't related to the guy.
No.
Okay, I'm projecting what I'm thinking about. I know a guy, Clint Brantley, who was the main character, the real person in Inverted World 2. When he was a child, had very, very vivid memories of how to fly a certain warplane that his dead grandfather flew that died before he was born. And he would tell his parents like all these things. And his family thought perhaps those memories were passed from the grandfather to him. Because it's like this kid never played with this specific type of plane. He's describing very detailed, this warplane from like World War II or World War One. But should we let's get to our caller. Let's get to Jessica. This is a perfect transition into callers. And I just want to say, I'm most excited about getting calls from everybody. I can't wait to hear these stories from all these people. I've got so many submissions, and I'm very, very grateful for everyone who's reached out with the story. My hope is with this show that we can kind of become a lighthouse in the dark, where we share all these dark, twisted, unhinged, mysterious, strange stories, but also remind ourselves that this world is equally beautiful and filled with joy.
But what if after like 6 episodes you've solved the mystery and it's just...
Then we're chilling. Then this is just going to be like a live stream of empty chair, and the ghost can come in here and do his thing, and we'll go meet at the beach or something.
Let's get a little ghost scream.
So,
Jessica,
nice.
Are you with us?
I'm here.
Woo!
Okay, so this is Jessica, and I just before you go, I got to say this is Jessica. Jessica's responsible for so much of the great art done at Timcast, for Inverted World, for everything. Shout out to you and all the amazing work you've done. You hustle. It's amazing. You've done, my book covers, and I'm grateful for it. And I thought it'd be great to have you on as our first caller. And if you'd like to share your story with us, we would love that.
Well, thank you guys for having me. This was really last minute. I actually messaged Shane early this morning after I was chit-chatting with 2 of our other coworkers, and I was telling them this story that I've forgotten about. And I was like, oh, this is probably worthy of Inverted World Live. So this is part of my journey to believing in spirits and ghosts, the afterlife's real. I used to think aliens were probably real and that ghosts were definitely fake.
What were you thinking of, like, ghost experiences if you thought they were fake?
I thought ghosts were probably like aliens that are just invisible, just fucking with us.
invisible aliens. I like that. That's a good name for our band. But okay, so you used to think that, and then what happened?
Well, a lot of things. And over the years, meeting Brian, who was really into paranormal, he introduced me to a whole bunch of stuff where I'm like, whoa, okay, there's something to this. But then there's also, this one thing that I've told you about is really personal that also helped with that. And I just want to preface this with a warning that it involves domestic violence. So I'm just going to throw that out there ahead of time in case people need that warning. All right, so if you're ready, I'll get into it.
Yeah, take it away.
All right, so this is back in 2010. My mom had died in June. In September, I'd signed a new lease with this guy I had been dating for a while. We spent all of our time together anyway, and my roommate had just left at the end of when our lease ended, so it made sense for him to take over and be on the lease for the new one. And then a few weeks later, he's like Jekyll and Hyde, and he turns into a monster. And it was at this point I realized I made a really big mistake. And originally I'm like, I just have to make it to the end of this lease, and then I'm out of here. Fuck this guy, I'm sorry,
right.
Bad word. But then I realized that winter that I wasn't going to make it to see the end of this lease. And then so this event that happened next was the tipping point. I get home from work and something causes an argument. I'm upset. I don't want to fight. I just want to go to another room and calm down, be alone. I go to the bedroom. I sit on the bed, hug my pillow, crying. He follows me into the room moments later, sits next to me, tries to put his arm around me, but I'm still I just want to be left alone. So I hug my pillow a little tighter and just lean away from him. He snaps, rips the pillow out of my arms, places it on my face, and pushes me down on the bed. He's suffocating me. I'm not strong enough to push him off. I can't scream for help. So in my mind, as I'm thinking, this is it, I'm gonna die. I'm screaming for my mom to save me. He eventually lets up and leaves the room. I start packing my bags immediately. He catches me trying to escape, pummels me around the apartment, preventing me from leaving. The neighbors heard and called the police. They took him away, and I had a 3-day protective order in place, courtesy of the state.
Wow.
So with nowhere to go, no money to afford to break my lease because they require 2 months worth of rent, and I'm making peanuts back then. I finally decided to call my dad and tell him I can't get myself out of this. I need help. I spent that night packing, mentally preparing myself to make that phone call. The next day, I call. My dad's 2 hours away, but he shows up the same day with his truck. We pack up my life into his truck and my hatchback. He pays the leasing office off to break my lease with money from my mom's life insurance, and then I was free. Fast forward a few years later, I've processed all the trauma and the damage to my ego. I'm talking with my dad about that day and about mom, and I told him how in my head I'm screaming for my ghost mom to save me. He stops me right there to tell me what happened to him. So that day he took a nap after he got home from work. He was woken up to the sound of my mom screaming his name from the living room. She kept calling for him. He could He could hear her clear as day. He jumps out of bed, makes his way to the living room. It's empty. You know, she's gone. The next day, he picks up the phone. It's me.
Wow.
And, told him how I had been getting beaten up. You know, I apologized for not asking for help sooner. He just lost his wife. You know, grandma, you know, his mother just died 6 months before that. Like, I didn't want him worried he was going to lose his daughter, too.
Wow.
So my mom, you know, trying to save her child, you know, the only thing she could, and she alerted my dad. Like, she heard me.
That's
And
unbelievable.
Wow.
That's my story.
I mean, that is horrible that it happened to you. Amazing, spooky Mother's Day story. And it's like, when you heard that from your father, so I'd imagine that is what started to change the way you view ghosts, and how do you view them now?
I was kind of already like in my quest of being like, maybe there's something to it. But like when my dad told me that, I was just like, you know, the afterlife's real, because when you lose someone, you really do want to believe like they're always with you, and you know, you're always like looking for signs.
Yeah.
And I was like, that you don't get any like clear of, you know, a sign than that.
Wow. Have you had other experiences with your mother or your father saying he's had experiences with her?
No, that's the only one.
Wow.
You know, but that I mean, honestly, that's like enough for me.
Well, yeah. It's incredible. That's kind of, you know, it reminds me in a weird way of what happened to me with my grandfather. You know, it's something, you know, obviously a very different situation, but it seems like they can reach across the divide to try to communicate with you when things are down. You know, my situation clearly different, but dealing with the loss of someone very recently, and the sadness of an 85-year-old woman being so isolated. So, but that's a great story, and I appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it till like last night, and then like you're like, that'd be a great Mother's Day story. I'm like, oh yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
in my dark and twisted way, yeah. And real quick, your mother, where did she pass away?
So when she was in the hospital, and they're basically like, there's nothing more we can do, her organs are shutting down, they you know, they sent her home with like a hospital bed and like a hospice nurse, and it's like, you know, just keep her comfortable. And it was in the living room. And
that's the house where your father hurt her?
Yes, the house I grew up in.
Interesting. Yeah, that's so interesting. I hear a lot of stories like that where people experience, you know, like that's how I feel about the little boy who seems to have been murdered in the house I grew up in, that these things kind of get trapped in there. And, you know, the boy didn't do much to help out us, other than being someone who sat down at the dinner table with us. We kind of adopted him as our ghost brother. But other than that, yeah, that's a beautiful experience. Despite all the horror you had to go through to hear from your mother, it's amazing that you and your father have that strange connection.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that story, Jessica.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll see you soon.
Right.
I have
congratulations on the launch.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jessica.
I have a similar but not ghost story.
Yeah.
I've told this one on Timcast IRL before, so maybe some of the people listening have already heard it, but this is one of those stories that makes you believe in God, like, or something. So back in the old neighborhood, growing up in Chicago, we had this friend, and I won't say anybody's names because it involves like criminal activity, but this one friend of ours was pretty lazy. And it's like a weird kind of lazy, because when he finally got a job at a fast food restaurant, he was so lazy he would just stay there all day. His boss would be like, you want to stick around for 4 more hours? He'd be like, sure. Because he didn't want to walk. He didn't want to leave. He was a homebody who would never go anywhere. He was a chubby kid. Finally gets a job, and then he wakes up, goes to work, and he just stays there all day. Whenever the boss asks him for overtime, he's like, you got it. He's nothing else to do. He's like a homebody, right? So one night, he was supposed to be working, I think, till it's like 2 a.m., fast food restaurant. And then around, it's been a long time since we got, since it's been 20-something years. Right. But around like 10 or so, he goes to his boss abruptly in the middle of his shift and says, hey man, I don't feel good. I gotta leave, man. I gotta go. And his boss is like, is something wrong? Like, it's very uncharacteristic of you, you know? And he's like, no, I just don't feel good. And he was like, hey man, look, you pick up every shift we ask you to do. Like, don't even stress, don't even worry about it. You need the night, you take the night. Instead of going home, this fat kid walked 3 miles to another one of our friends' house. Walked. We don't know why. He leaves the restaurant, walks straight there, and he finds the two of them overdosed on heroin.
Whoa.
But alive. And he pulls them out. They won't wake up. He sprays them with a hose. They won't wake up. He calls 911. They get there in a few minutes, administer Narcan, and both the guys live.
What?
And the first thing I remember when first thing someone tells me is they were like, hey, did you hear that, dude found someone's, like, dude's overdose? And I was like, for real? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, well, how did he wait, what? How did he find him? And they were like, he like showed up and found him overdose. And I was like, wait, what do you mean he showed up? That's like 3 miles away. Like, we're talking like you've got Harlem Avenue in Chicago
right.
to like past Central Avenue.
Wow.
And then they were like, yeah, he walked over to their house and saw, and the car was around the block even.
Well, like the spirit was drawing
That's a
him
divine
there?
intervention.
No idea.
That's divine
but
intervention.
like apparently when the police asked him why, like something doesn't add up, they say, sir, you left work early and came and found these. It wasn't even at his house, like, because they were doing heroin.
Mm-hmm.
They had parked the car like around the corner, and they were like, sir, what are you doing here? And he was crying, saying, I don't know.
Wow.
He was like, I was at work and I started to feel weird. I started to feel messed up, and I couldn't be here anymore. And then I told my boss I needed to leave, and then I just had to walk over here for some reason. I just had to do it. And then he found him, and they would have been dead if he did not get there.
Holy crap. I'm afraid to even ask this. What happened to that kid after that? Was
was
that like a life-changing?
two guys.
Well, I mean, the guy
I
who
don't
walked. I'm like curious. Like, was that a wake-up moment for him? Like, I don't want to be lazy anymore.
He lost like
or did he
100
like
pounds.
find?
No.
Yeah, he became a marathon runner.
No, of
Yeah.
course not.
No,
As far as I know, he just stayed the exact same way he always was.
Wow.
Yes, it was so weird because we were like, they called him Fatso.
Right.
Like
the
this is
kid
a
who
kid-
didn't want to leave the work, who
Yeah.
was just lazy.
I will say this: for all I know, they're telling stories.
Right. Right.
It is true that the kids overdosed and the police
Right.
came, and that was a big deal in the neighborhood.
Right.
And a bunch of people try to come up with reasons as to why he was actually over there. He didn't really walk. That's
Right.
not true. He must have taken a bus. He said he walked. How could he have walked? But it's like,
Yeah.
here's the thing to think about. He walked, I think it's like, I don't know, 2 miles probably.
Okay.
That means during his walk, these two guys shot up heroin.
Right.
It wasn't that they shot up heroin and then he got the feeling. It's that something sent him on his way there before they even did it.
Right. He was on an invisible bridge.
Maybe he knew that they were going to be doing heroin. He was like, I just got to make sure they're okay.
Could be, but the lazy guy walking all that way.
So we
Right, 'cause you
so
just take it.
that's the first thing people said. They were like, nah, he knew what they were up to and he was trying to get in on it. And I was like, why would he walk? Why would he even show up to work at all in the first place? Right. If he knew that his friends were going to be doing drugs and he wanted to go drugs, he would have taken the night off in the first place.
Right.
He wouldn't abruptly in the middle of his shift be like, it's time for me to leave. And as far as we knew, he did not do those kinds of drugs. So you really what it comes down to is if you're the skeptic, you're going to say, dumb kids in the south side of Chicago doing drugs, and this guy was going to get in on it. I don't need to hear anything else.
Right.
But a lot of people in the neighborhood, at least in the back of their minds, they're like, maybe there's something else.
The thing with that stuff is you got to be skeptical always, but the story's amazing. However, that there have been instances where people are, say, like a child trapped under a car, and all of a sudden someone has the strength to lift a car up.
Yeah.
So things do happen that are bizarre. Obviously a different situation, but there are things that happen that are miracles. That something, the spirit enters you, and you're just capable of saving someone's life somehow.
Maybe it's something like, one of these dudes that overdosed, a grandparent or a lost loved one,
Yep.
called out to their friend saying,
Right.
you need to come now.
Like it's like you hear a voice.
Because think of it this way. It doesn't have to be God or transcending time or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It could actually be, maybe you think it's a guardian angel.
Right.
Maybe it's a lost loved one. And they see these two dudes scoring drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And then that spirit is just like, I know what's going to happen. And then calls out to the other guy and says, get over here now.
Yeah.
And pulls him.
Yeah.
And then he saved their lives.
Yeah. That's why I like thinking about the stone tape theory, although I'm not the biggest subscriber of it. I think it's fascinating because I think things that have happened in a place you're occupying can have an effect on you, whether it's the ghost actually doing it, or you projecting your knowledge of the past into yourself. You just reminded me of a story. I've never told this story. It's not my story, but I have it to my friend. But I think about it a lot when you talk about places that have some type of, I don't know, possession of sorts. People talk about that when they go to like a battlefield or something. You know, when I was in Georgia for the Inverted World season 2, I came across a coven of witches who would do these weird blood rituals on a battlefield where the biggest, bloodiest battle of revolution happened. They were psychotic. But I think about that when I went to New York for the holidays. I saw my friend, and I always ask my friend, "Hey, what happened to our other friend?" I just want to leave names out because it's kind of crazy. Our other friend, who used to do a lot of work for this old job I worked at, my one friend owns, guy we knew for years, all of a sudden woke up on, it happened to be 9/11, not that 9/11, but it just happened to be a 9/11, woke up and held his family hostage by gunpoint, tied him up. I believe he said he was going to bring him to Disney World, and they all like packed up and he didn't hurt them. They were saved. I think he was held hostage, and it was a whole police thing. He went to jail. It was very bizarre that this guy we knew for years, who did a lot of work with us, just snapped all of a sudden. So whenever I see my friend who owns that business, I'm like, man, what happened? Like, because it just boggles my mind that you can see someone can snap. Kind of like what Jessica was saying with that boyfriend, all of a sudden becoming a monster.
You know,
yeah.
That story I told, and it just, for me, it makes me feel like there is intervention.
Yes.
Like, I believe in God.
Yeah.
And I think there's a purpose.
Yep.
And sometimes there's intervention. Yeah.
And it could come from good and bad places.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Well,
so
just like tonight, right?
Exactly.
Everything got messed up.
Exactly.
Until,
Yeah. Sure would.
That stuff freaks me out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We walk into the room an hour beforehand, and the video card fell out. Like,
Yes.
and I said to the crew's like, no, that's wrong. That doesn't happen. And they're like, yeah, it fell out. And I was like, how does it fall? I mean, I understand you can screw them in, and there's
Right.
no screw, whatever, but like, it just fell out.
But there was more than one thing. It was like one thing after the next was happening.
Yeah. The
You know,
arm
it's
was
falling
weirdest
apart.
for me.
You know what I like to think? Whenever I'm driving somewhere and then a train comes and stops me, I think, I wonder if this train wasn't here, would I have gotten into a car accident?
I know.
But do you also
Like-
ever have like thoughts like, I'm going to get into an accident right now? Like you almost like think it's going to happen and then it doesn't happen?
Yeah, it's like intrusive thoughts and stuff.
Yeah, right,
For
right.
sure. Scott Fitzgerald, actually, I believe it was him, wrote a short story about that. Like, if this didn't happen, then that wouldn't have happened. Or if this happened, then this would happen, right? And it's a series of events that either save your life or destroy your
Yep.
life, which is life as it is,
Yeah.
right? But real quick, before I forget, that friend who snapped, who I was talking to my friend about in New York, I was there in the holidays, and I once again, even though it's been 10 years plus since that event happened, I go, hey man, how is he still in jail? Like, what's the deal? He goes, yeah, but I was working at the shop, and I was telling me this other story. This guy comes in, he's like on PCP or something, and he's freaking me out. He's a client, and he's like, I have to kick him out. Something about him is really bothering me. And he kicks him out eventually. And right before he kicks him out, this guy kind of wakes up from whatever spell he was under, whether it was PCP or who knows what. Totally normal all of a sudden. And then they actually do the job they were there to do. And but my friend was like, I don't ever want to see this guy again. It was really weird how he just snapped like that. Maybe it was bipolar. Who knows?
Demons.
Fast forward a bit, and my friend's wife and their children are at the playground, and the child comes up and says, this is my best friend from school, and this is her dad, and the dad is the guy who was freaking my friend out not that long ago. Okay. So this guy, he's like, my friend, he's like, well, I got to figure a way. My daughter's not going to be friends with this person because she can't go to that house because that man is possessed. So they find a way to be like, look, you can't be friends with this person. I'm really sorry. At least not without us around. You can never go to the house. Then fast forward a little longer, a little further into the future. My friend gets a frantic phone call from his wife saying there's a hostage situation, and it's that father and the children. And she goes, you'll never believe this. It's that guy's house who held his family hostage, who I always ask my friend about.
A different person?
Different person in the same house. And our former friend who held the family hostage, his wife sold it to this family. So it's like, what?
Isn't that like the Amityville horror or something?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Whenever,
Yep.
Amityville,
Which
when
is,
I,
you know all about that. 'Cause she's
Whenever-
from that area. Yeah.
whenever someone moves in, the dad goes. It's like The Shining.
Yes, dude, exactly.
The Shining,
That's why I
exactly
think
that.
there's something, a place can absorb something, whether you know it's there or not.
I read a crazy story on Reddit.
Oh, yeah, let's hear
Oh
it.
boy.
It was someone. It was like a thread, and it was like, "What are the your crazy stories?" And someone said that their sister was born with severe cerebral like defects and
Yep.
and autism, so she couldn't communicate or function. It would just drool and was in a wheelchair. And then she's like, abruptly one day, her sister just goes full loose and says, "Please help me! I'm trapped in here. Please, you have to help me!" And then goes right back to completely
No
unable.
way.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
Well, but the thing
Just
is,
a story on the internet.
But the thing is, Alex,
Reddit.
it could just be a story on the internet. But then like there's people who've woken up from comas with whole new lives and histories or languages.
And I'm thinking, what if?
Forever young.
yeah,
What if her spirit in her body is capable and
Yes.
sees and understands, but there's a demon or
Yep.
some kind of entity, and you wonder what the motivation of a dark entity is, to make a man threaten his own family or to torture this poor woman by cutting her off from her own body. And so you would think, but wouldn't the demon want to commit a murder? No, the demon is torturing the soul of this young woman by forcing her body down like that.
right. It's like the parasite never wants to kill the host because it needs the host. It needs to feed off of you to
Yeah.
the very end, kind of like the government. But like that's what happens with people. They are held captive. Again in Georgia, I met a guy who had dealt with a demon, according to him, that took hostages in a church basement right outside this town. I also had that battlefield with the witches, and this guy and everyone in that area believed that this demon was no good.
I heard this rumor that the Catholic Church has been doing way more exorcisms in the past
Yeah.
few years.
Supposedly, yeah. They actually put out something recently. I don't think I sent you that article, but something I was looking at. They just put out a new way to deal with apparitions, which is something they've been doing for a while. And I don't want to speak out of tongues. Anytime I talk to Seamus Coughlin about this stuff, he's like, "Well, you misinterpreted the way they did it." I'm like, "I'm sorry, Seamus," but they have been for the last many years being like, "This is how we now think about extraterrestrials. This is how we deal with apparitions." But they do exorcisms quite a bit.
What if the crazy thing is that as society becomes more and more secular and atheist, we're basically breaking down the wards that keep the entities away and keep us safe.
Yep, that's it.
And it's funny because in the modern context of the world, we talk about politically, because we've made this country so safe, people forget how dangerous it can be.
Exactly.
What if we've made the world so safe spiritually that the wards are starting to break down as we drift away from spirituality or faith?
Exactly.
And one day, we laugh at the idea of demons and monsters and spirits. It's sleep paralysis. You're hallucinating, but it's only because imagine someone in downtown New York said, "I saw a bear on Fifth Avenue." You'd be like, "That's crazy. There's no bears on Fifth Avenue."
Yep.
But then there was like a deer in one city.
Yep.
As we start to break down the barriers we built up, what if in like 5 years it becomes just this kind of phenomenon is so ubiquitous that people start to accept, demons are real, and these dark entities do possess people, and possession is real. It's just that we like 2,000 years ago, it got so bad, we pushed it all away.
Yep.
And then we forgot why we did the things we did, and so we let them back in.
Yep.
And we don't believe they exist, but it, maybe soon it gets so bad we start to realize and see definitive proof it does exist.
It's like when you send someone into exile and just forget about him, like Napoleon. He's like, "I'm coming back."
Yeah.
And you forget about me, I'll be, and I'm going to take it back. And he did. And I think that's why we have a culture of nihilism now, because they probably stripped away a lot of religion.
The skeptics would say of like that house with the dad going crazy.
Yeah.
They'd say black mold.
Right. For sure.
They'd give you a reason.
For sure.
Always a reason.
Yeah, there's TED Talks about people who believe they've been haunted and they find it's a leak of sorts or mold of sorts. So, I'm skeptical of everything, but also
skeptical, open-minded.
I'm fine with that, right? So there was one story where a guy said he kept finding Post-it notes,
Right.
reminders around his house, and he didn't know where they were coming from. And then someone commented, "You have a carbon monoxide leak. Get out of your house now."
Right.
And he did.
Right.
And so I got no issues of someone saying, "Oh yeah, carbon monoxide made a guy loopy."
Right.
But some of these stories, like, a person hearing their mother, a father hearing the mother call out to him while the daughter is being threatened.
Exactly.
Like
the
that's
carbon
not
monoxide
carbon
could
monoxide.
also be a demon too. Like that. Could
Nice.
be-
Or
The demon, cracked the pipe.
Well,
exactly.
people do say that there are certain drugs that you can take that open up portals to demons within you. Like a lot of they'll say a lot of the fentanyl stuff going on now, or meth in general, opens up a portal in you to be possessed.
Right.
The DMT stuff I think is dangerous.
Oh yeah, because it sends you to the other place, and you're there unfettered.
What's the other one you have to go
untethered.
to like Thailand for, like Okinawa or something?
Oh, ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah. Okinawa.
I made up my own word.
But we should probably get to another caller. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
let's
Sarah.
see-
We got
let's see who
Sarah
we got.
coming in. Sarah, let's see if we can bring her in. Okay.
Thank you guys for waiting and waiting to tell us your stories.
sorry.
I'm stoked.
Are you with us, Sarah?
I am.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for calling in and wanting to tell us a story.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a crazy one.
Let's hear it.
Well, I last year took over management of a Taco Bell restaurant that was super haunted.
Whoa.
Already love it.
Yeah.
No, not Taco Bell.
I wanted this story tonight because Tim likes to live Moss.
So do I.
Well, I hope I don't chase him off Taco Bell. I hope it's just mine that has me. But yeah, it was particularly crazy for me because I was an atheist my entire life until I was like 33. I was baptized Catholic at 34, about 6 weeks before I took over this restaurant. But I spent my whole life, I didn't believe in demons, ghosts, absolutely nothing. So believing in this kind of thing was pretty new to me when I took over this location last year. And so I get in there, and my employees had really been through it. I was at that point when I took it in July after going through training. I was the third manager they'd had that year already.
Wow.
So when they start telling me stories like, stuff gets moved and people get touched by things, I didn't really take it seriously. I thought they were just, messing with the new manager a little bit.
Right. So it's a hazing ritual.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, whatever, guys, fine. Oh, no, it's a ghost. So I didn't really take it super seriously until I started to experience stuff myself.
And what was that?
And the first thing I experienced was, we had chronic staffing issues, and it was still summer. So when we closed at 4 o'clock on a Saturday, it was still light outside. We all, shut it down, hit the alarm, everybody leaves. I get a few blocks away, realize I've forgotten something, turn around and go back, unlock the door, hit the alarm, grab what I needed. I run into the restroom and come back out, and now I'm alone in the building, but I feel like something's watching me. And it is just the creepiest, and just like the air was heavy. It was like this really just oppressive, like that sensation's not coming from anywhere in particular. It's like the building had its eyes on me.
Ooh. And you felt something physically, like you were like, I can feel it on me, watching me?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, I don't know. It was just like a weird kind of like electricity in the air, just the vibe in the building had changed.
Right.
Like it was creepy, heavy air, like that kind of thing.
I think I heard it just now on the phone. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So I was like, nope, I am not staying here for this. So I run back over, grab what I forgot, hit the alarm, and I go to leave. And right before I do that, I say the Lord's Prayer and the Prayer of St. Michael. And in the southwest corner of the building in my dry storage, just something, I have no idea what, because I didn't walk back there and look, just something fell off a shelf. And I was like, nope, hit the alarm, turn around, and a pen rolls off the drive-through table and also hits the floor. I was like, whatever, I'm gone. So I take off and I leave.
Wow.
I was not staying there for that. But over the next few weeks, I had some similar things happen. I had a friend who was really upset by this. Don't be alone in the building. If you have to be alone in the building, don't get anywhere you can get stuck. So I would put boxes in the walk-in door if I had to be in there, so it couldn't shut me in, and it pushed one of those boxes out of the way.
Whoa.
our water heater was, according to maintenance, perfectly fine, but water was getting ridiculously hot for no reason. I had a couple near scaldings.
Wow.
People started reporting to me they'd been touched. They were hearing their name being whispered from that same back corner. Like, a lot of the activity kind of originated from that southwest corner. And one night, like the last thing that happened before I called my priest, was I was talking to someone and I said the word exorcism. I wasn't even discussing the building. I was making a joke about their car because they had terrible Bluetooth, and I said, LOL, better get your car exercised. And as soon as I said that, a pan falls off a shelf and almost hit me, just lands in the sink.
Whoa.
And that was in full view of 3 other people.
Wow. Did you ever happen to look into the history of this place?
Is it built over a cemetery?
Right. Was the Taco Bell a funeral home before this?
This one could have been. I don't know the history of the building. I did have a couple of the employees that had been there for a while tell me that one of the previous managers was like really into the occult and may have been doing some Satan worship on the premises,
Wow.
but I was not able to confirm.
That's a sitcom right there.
Yeah, the satanic Taco Bell? Come on. Wow. Yeah, for sure. So did you say you spoke to a priest about exorcisms, and did anything ever come of that?
Yeah, right after that incident with the pan falling, just because I said the word exorcism, I went and saw my priest, and I said, look, this is what's going on. And he's like, yeah, we absolutely need to come in there. And okay, with the building owners, all that. Yeah, absolutely. I talked it over with my boss. I think he just let me do it to make me feel better, but in any case, he let me. So my priest and our deacon came out, and they blessed the entire building inside and out. Like, we're talking wall-to-wall holy water. They blessed a crucifix
Wow.
for me to protect me from
Wow.
anything in there. I'm actually still wearing it right now.
Wow.
And they told me after the blessing was complete that if this didn't work, if anything else happened, they would be back and they would bring out the big guns.
What is that? The Pope?
I have absolutely no idea.
What,
Wait, so is it happening still?
Oh yeah. Did things die down after that?
Yeah, immediately after it did. For a little while until one of my employees got involved. It was pretty quiet for a few weeks, actually. Like, nothing really crazy or noteworthy happened until a Saturday. I was opening. I had one employee there with me. I had a shift lead come in, and we were still waiting on 2 more opening crew members. So when it was just me and my employee in the building, she had commented to me, she's like, I wish you would have given me 5 minutes alone with this thing before you would have brought the priest in, because I would have loved to have dealt with it. I said, nope, we are not antagonizing the demon. It's not happening.
She's gonna box it? What is she thinking?
Yeah, I know. I have absolutely no idea what her plan was. I didn't even want to hear it. I was like, let's just not speak this into existence, ma'am.
Right.
So my shift lead shows up, and I need to game plan with him for the day, and he wants to smoke before we actually get started. So he wants a cigarette. I go outside with him. We come back in less than 10 minutes later, and I've got my employee just yelling things into the building like, F you, and you can't scare me, and bring it on. And I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. So I get her to stop what she's doing. Please do not antagonize it, and just carry on with opening.
Was it antagonized?
Yeah, did that wake it back up?
Antagonized. It was very, very angry. We actually had an electrical fire that day.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was about 30 minutes later, like right before opening. I gather up all, at that point, 4 employees, the shift lead, and me. I gather us all around my office door, like right at the end of the line, and just kind of going through the day, like, okay, this is how many people we have. This is, I need who doing what, that kind of thing. And just a couple minutes into this conversation, I smell like that really distinct electrical fire smell. And I look over at my shift lead and I say, hey, do you smell that? And the whole crew chimes in, yeah, I do. And I said, okay, cool. You 4, my crew level employees, go outside right now. Shift lead, you're here with me. We got to find where this is coming from. And if it's actually something, we got to call the fire department. So we're looking around about a minute, and we can't find it. We can smell it, but we can't see anything. So I call my boss, and I'm like, hey, is there anything that could just do this? in this building. And I'm in that back corner in the dry storage while I'm on the phone with him, and I walk back out to kind of where I can see the line near my office door. And right as I come around that corner, there's a part of our hotline where we keep like the fried stuff to keep it warm. It maintains temperature at like 250 degrees. And then there's another one next to it that keeps the taco shells warm. And they both have like heating units on top of them to regulate the temperature. And the first one, as soon as I come around the corner, just like this puff of black smoke and a bunch of sparks come out of it.
And this is the first time you're seeing anything like this?
Yeah, first time ever. And it's within 30 minutes of my employee like coming right at this demon or entity and pissing it off.
And what was your solution after that? Did you talk to the priest again?
Yeah, and he was supposed to be coming back. We were trying to find a time to do it. My boss was a little bit more hesitant that time because at this point we're into late November. And so I'm trying to kind of get that nailed back down because clearly we have a problem if it's doing that. Like, I mean, I've had people burned with hot water. I've got trying to burn the building down. We actually, I think we ended up closing for the rest of that day because my equipment was damaged.
Right.
And then over the course of the next few days, I actually had other little things, like no more near fires, but just like stuff going out. Like our grill wouldn't work, our hotline stopped working. So I had to have like a ton of maintenance done just within a few days of this.
I was hoping to see what the big guns would have been. So I guess you didn't see the big guns.
No, I never did get to find out what the big guns were, unfortunately, because the last thing that happened while I was with the company was the first Tuesday in December, and I was alone in the building doing our inventory count. And it was pretty early. It was only like 7, maybe 8 o'clock, but it's winter, so it's super dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting in my office. I'm entering the numbers from my count into the system, and I get that oppressive, like somebody's watching me feeling again, but it's like 20 times more intense this time. It's just like so much stronger.
Right.
Like the air felt really dense. And I felt very, very strongly that had I felt like getting up and looking out my office door in the direction of my dry storage, I would have been able to see whatever it was, like it wanted to show me.
And you didn't want to look?
No, I very much did not want to look. So I sat in my office, the prayer of St. Michael, and I crossed myself and I waited. Because I knew it wanted to scare me, and I didn't want to give it the satisfaction of scaring me in that way. So I was like, I am just going to wait. And it did eventually. The sensation passed. I felt like it wasn't just lurking out there anymore. Right. And at that point, I'm like, okay, it's time to go. I'm done for the night. I'm going home. So to get to clock out, I have to walk all the way down the line and around a corner to where the time clock is on the front counter. And then I have to come back to set the alarm, which is right outside my office door. And I get about halfway to the time clock, and a bunch of things on the wall, like right around the corner, like between the walk-in door and where the alarm pad are, just falls off the wall and hits the floor. Stuff like dustpans, brooms, the little stick that we put the pad on to clean the grill, like all that kind of stuff just splatters around.
Right.
And there was nothing for it. Like I didn't bump anything that would have done it. There's nobody else in the building. That stuff's not just prone to falling down. So it felt a little bit like a hissy fit to me. Like I didn't let it scare me, so it found a different way. And that totally worked. So I like run down to the time clock and run back and grab my stuff and close my office door and hit the alarm and get the hell out of there. And when I see him, I absolutely did not stop to pick that stuff up. I left it exactly where it was. I wanted nothing more to do with this that night. And when I saw my assistant manager the next morning, I told her, hey, I'm sorry about that stuff on the floor. Like, I've had something really crazy happen last night. And she's like, what are you talking about? What are you, like, there's nothing on the floor this morning. And she would have been the next person in the building, not like somebody else did.
So something, you're saying something cleaned it up before someone got there?
Yeah. I think the demon picked up after himself. possibly for the purposes of making me look crazy.
They do like to do that,
but,
sounds like.
Yeah. Now
how did it?
Last thing go ahead.
No, yeah, I was going to say, and how did that resolve? Or did you stay there much longer?
No, I parted ways with the company within a week after that last incident.
Because of the demon?
Partially,
yeah. Did you tell them there's a demon here? I cannot work here.
No, that is not specifically the reason I gave. But that, I mean, it certainly was a contributing factor to why we chose to part ways with each other. But yeah,
wow.
It was overall a pretty terrifying experience. I would have loved to have gotten my priest in there again because I also would love to know what the big guns are.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we never quite got there.
Well, I appreciate this story, and it's something, something we're trying to do here with this show is we're going to have a little community on the Scanner app where we might start investigations together. And I don't know if you'd be comfortable with this one, but at some point, this is something that'd be fun for like the community to do, where we find out the address and do our research, and maybe offer some type of answer, or just look at the history of this stuff. That's the thing I would do with stories like that, like my old house. Look at everything Town Hall had on the structure or house, and try to pinpoint perhaps what this is, or it was built on something interesting. But I really appreciate you telling the story, and I'm assuming you've been demon free since Taco Bell.
Yeah, nothing else
That's good.
crazy going on in my life. In my car, I actually have a vial of blessed salt hanging from my rear view. So
Amazing.
nothing crazy happening to me.
Amazing. Well, God bless and good luck out there.
I'm glad you got out of there.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for calling in.
Oh, good off. Sorry.
Do you know the story of Resurrection Mary?
You've told me once before, a long time ago. Tell us again.
One of the most famous ghost stories in Chicago.
Yeah.
There's a road called Archer Avenue that goes from downtown all the way down southwest to the south side by Midway Airport, where it turns into Old Archer Avenue and then curves and goes off into this wooded foresty area. And there's a couple locations that are famously haunted. The Ashbury Cafe is about 2 blocks away from what used to be, I believe, the Willowbrook Ballroom. I don't know if it's, I think that's what it was called. I was staying at the Ashbury Cafe when I was 16 and, play open mic, but that place is famously haunted. People have been pushed down the stairs. And if you go there, because I did, and, I used to hang out there when I was like 16 till I was maybe 18 or whatever. Every Wednesday and every weekend, because they had improv night and they had open mic night. And a few years, so this is probably when I was 28 maybe. I come back and I ask the owner if I can film and talk to someone about the ghosts. Absolutely not. Don't want. I'm assuming she doesn't want this place to be the ghost place.
Right.
But the people who are familiar with it know the stories because they're online for like famous hauntings.
Wow.
When I went back to Chicago, wanting to do a short little video about Resurrection Mary, that was the year the Willowbrook Ballroom burnt to the ground.
Wow.
So here the story is. It's probably one of the most famous or classic stories about the vanishing woman, which you've probably heard of these kinds of ghost stories.
Right.
On Archer Avenue, numerous people throughout the years, I mean dozens, if not more, have reported either seeing a young blonde woman in a ball gown walking down the street only to completely vanish when they look back. She's not there anymore. Some people have said that they've been flagged down by this young woman in a ball gown asking for a ride to the Willowbrook Ballroom. And then when they start driving, they'll get to a stoplight. And when they look over to talk to her, she's gone. Mm-hmm. There was a cab driver who picked up this young woman. And when he got close to where it was and was getting ready to drop her off, he looks in the back of his car and she's not there anymore. So the story is that at some point, long time ago, this ballroom, there was a young woman. I don't remember the full details. It's you could find the full details. I think it was something happened where she got into a fight with her date and decided to walk home. And it's pitch black. I mean, it's a forest basically. You're walking, right. And then she got killed in a hit and run. And this must have been the 50s or something. Since then, people have started reported seeing this woman walking down the road all the way up into the Midway Airport area where I grew up. And this is well-lit, street lights, halogen, busy businesses, bars. And and so when I remember hearing that someone saw her down the Red Barrel is a place they called it. Right. It's a restaurant, and someone walked out and saw her. And the crazy thing is, some of these people are tourists. They don't know the story, and they report to the police. Yeah, some young woman is, in a gown. Some people have said that when they saw her walking down the street and they drive past her and look back, she has no face. Huh. Now, here's the craziest part of the story. She's called Resurrection Mary because on the way to the ballroom, she's often asking people to drop her off across the street from the Resurrection Cemetery. And the cemetery has these big iron fences. And so I'm probably getting the story wrong, and you can look it up, the story is that someone reported seeing a young woman in a dress near the gate of the cemetery when it was closed. And the next day, there were hand marks bent into the metal, causing an uproar with people freaking out about what this could be. And the local said, no, a truck backed into it. We assure you everything's fine. And the urban legend is that they fixed the fence, repaired it, and then slowly, over the next few months, the bends in the metal slowly started to reappear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like when I was in Georgia, I found
right here?
an abandoned cemetery in Georgia. And the reason I went down in the first place is because they're like, no one knows what this graveyard is. It's only Revolutionary era people buried there. But the handle just keeps getting polished. And they're like,
whoa,
we think the ghost keeps returning to open it.
Look up Bachelor's Grove.
Okay.
Famous photo of a ghost. I think it appeared in the Chicago Sun-Times. I think we had talked about you investigating
on the very
Chicago.
First IRL I ever did, almost 3 years ago.
Grove.
Yeah, there's a photo of a woman sitting on a grave, I think.
Yep.
And it was publicly reported as a ghost because the photographers who went down there, this is where Al Capone dumped the bodies, the Midlothian Turnpike.
Right.
And there's satanic rituals performed there, probably still to this day. Mm-hmm. When we were teenagers, we'd always want to go there. And there's one reason why we were always told not to go there. And it's not because of ghosts, but it's because creepy weirdos do satanic rituals, and it's very dangerous.
Right.
So I went there, of course, with my friends. And someone had hung up like a mock corpse with blood saying "keep out" as you're walking in. Wow. Yeah.
It's like, what's that movie? They go into the woods.
Blair Witch.
Blair Witch.
Yeah. That's how I feel like this show could evolve into me with a camera running through this house at some point.
Well, Blair Witch just happened right here in Frederick.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The a good area for
not Frederick, like
stuff.
right outside of
the motel where they filmed is actually down the street from the castle.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not there anymore, so I have no problem saying that.
Right.
Right. Well, that's what I said.
Yep. That's funny. Do we have another caller?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's.
We got Kevin.
I know there's a bunch of people who signed up. I would like to get to most of them if we can.
Okay. Kevin, are you in the room with us?
Kevin, can you hear us?
I can.
What's up, Kevin? Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate it, lady, gentlemen. How are you today?
We're good.
Great.
Got a good voice for ghost stories.
Yes.
So mine is less of a ghost story and more of a what the hell was that story. So I'm glad I'm able to at least fit in with you guys a little bit.
Perfect. Take it away.
Way back in 2001, I was a young Marine stationed on Camp Pendleton, and it was 11:15 at night, 23:15 for those military folks out there. And me and my buddy are just chilling in the smoke pit, relaxing after fire watch, having a conversation, and looking up at the stars, because being from, the south side of Chicago, we don't have too many stars in the sky.
Right.
And, it was something I do all the time. And I'm looking up and I see this star moving and I figure, it's just a plane. I'm on a military base. I see them all the time. And then it started to move. And when I say move, it was 5 or 6 real fast 45 to 90 degree turns. It made this weird design and went to the very middle of it, and in a flash, it was gone. And I looked at my buddy, and to this day, I could see Cook's face. And we were just like, dude, did you see that? What was that? And I go, aliens, bro. Aliens.
Can you describe the weird design?
Honestly, it sort of looked like a 5-point star, sort of, but the angles were a little off. If I redrew it now, if you could pull up the design of the Jeep Compass logo, it had the triangle at the top and the triangle at the bottom, but the two outside edges were, it was like 2 on one side, 3 on the other, and it didn't stay very long to be able to get a clear picture of it, but the flash is what really threw me off.
Can you describe the flash? Was it a big flash? Can you tell us like the color?
It was a blue-green flash, but it wasn't large like a firework. It was more of a like if you shot a bottle rocket up.
Yep.
And you took that distance, it was a small, quick, instant flash like that. If we were in the air, we would have probably gotten a lot better look at it. But I mean, we were on a military base, so who knows if it was us, if it was.
That's what I was going to ask you.
You know.
Yeah. Did you talk to anyone else other than your buddy from the base? Had they seen anything either that night or any other time while at the base?
I had talked to a few MP buddies that I had there, and one of my corpsman friends, you know, we love our corpsmen, and he was telling me about one time they were out on Edson Range, and that's a rifle range, and we were doing night fire, and you know, when we were out there, sometimes they'd let us just fill up our mags with tracer rounds. So it literally looked like Star Wars with the red and green lasers going down range.
Right.
And he told me one time, because when you're in the pit, you're raising the targets and dropping the targets. Well, he said one time he was down there and they were just raising the targets, and he looked over and he could swear that he saw a guy dressed in Vietnam era clothing walking the pit from one side to the other. And he said to this day he can't figure out what that was, but he knows he saw somebody walking.
Wow. Do you follow UFO news ever since? Do you keep up with it in terms of the committee hearings and stuff?
Yeah, I haven't joined any of the UFO or paranormal sites, but I do. I have followed some of the bigger names in it and listened to some of their talks, and I'm not convinced about the alien battle underground in the
where the guy lost his hand
in New Mexico, but you know, you never know.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because 2 years ago when the I refuse to say UAP. I really don't like the rebrand. I'm going to call it UFOs. When the UFO committee was starting to share their findings, every instance of a UFO that was seen happened to be on a military base, which is, I think you alluded to this earlier at the beginning of your story. You don't know if it's us or what. It's always interesting to me that a lot of these sightings do happen around military bases. Like I said in the beginning of the show, I grew up on a military base. There was a lot of people who saw a lot of strange things over the Hudson River, and I always assume it's us. Although I do think they're interdimensional beings. I think a lot of the things that we see in our sky are probably us and when I say us, I mean Lockheed Martin, that we're feeding billions of dollars. But they build things like that. You know, in 2000, you said 2001.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So 2001, I'd imagine they'd have stuff that's 50 to 100 years, ahead of that time, hidden in some bunker that they're trying out, knowing that the soldiers below, wouldn't know they've never seen this technology before. But you don't know, because it could also be aliens, because there's a theory out there that aliens gave our military and other militaries the technology, and that's how we have it, which is where Area 51 comes in. Had you seen anything else after that at the base or elsewhere?
After that, no, I did have a semi-paranormal experience in Afghanistan once. We thought we heard voices of like an older battle, because there was nothing going on at the time. We were in Kandahar, and literally just a lull. We're just hanging out, and we hear talking, but there is nobody around, and we can't explain where the voices came from. So we just think, with that being such a war-torn area, that maybe something from the past is bleeding through.
Yeah, I think it's possible. When I visit battlefields, it's hard to know if I'm just projecting my knowledge of the history and the bloodshed onto a place, or if there's actually something ghost-like seeping up from the ground. But everywhere in this world is a graveyard for the most part. Times Square, or not Times Square, well, maybe Times Square, but Central Park was a graveyard until they leveled that and turned it into a nice little park. So you never know what you're walking on. But hey, man, I really appreciate the story, and we'll keep our eyes to the sky. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Kevin.
Chance to share with you guys. I want you to have a great rest of your show.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Before we get to the next caller,
Yes.
I sent you a story about Elon Musk and UFOs. I thought this was interesting, since we heard Kevin's story about UFOs. Elon is like doubling down on no aliens, which is funny to me, because he's like,
aliens.
He's like, well, he told Rogan a long time ago that there's no aliens. He's never seen any proof, and that's my theory. And now recently he's saying that no Starlink has ever had to dodge any type of UFO. So I'm curious. Do we trust this, or is this proof of that they're just not from space and it's interdimensional?
How often do we trip over anthills?
Depends where I'm at.
We don't. I mean, surely if you're in Africa, you might find one of those really big ones you might want to avoid.
Right.
But to an alien that is beyond our scientific capabilities,
right,
seeing a rock floating through space is negligible. Why would it?
Yeah.
Why would it trip over it? To be fair, his point is they've never had to dodge. Is that what he says? Dodge it.
I think he says dodge.
And we do kick over anthills quite a bit.
Right.
So, I suppose the argument then is, if there are aliens, they're intentionally making sure they don't disturb. But that's also kind of like, if there was a beehive, you wouldn't mess around with it, because you wouldn't want to cause yourselves the attention.
Right. And I guess Kevin's call also made me think of this. A lot of people out at military bases claim to have seen things, and then the theory is that we're being observed because these other beings want to see what type of power we have. There's stories of them visiting like missile launches, stuff like that, and also sightings like this spike in times of strife. During lockdowns, there were so many people reporting things. That also could have been because we're just home and bored, and we're seeing things, and we're also freaked out psychologically by the fear ritual taking place. But you could also, the Cold War, there was a spike in sightings.
There's something I like to do when I'm driving with people on road trips. I'm on the highway, vast stretch of nothingness in the Great Plains.
Yep.
And I will see a cell phone tower. And I will ask the person with me, what do you see right now? And they'll go, what, where? And I'll be like, look out on the road. What do you see? And they're like, nothing. And I'm like, okay, there's grass, there's road, there's sky, and there's clouds. What else do you see? And they're like, nothing. And we're coming up on it, and I'll say, you don't see anything. And they'll be like, no, what are you talking about? And I'll say, you don't see the giant cell phone tower that's been right in our field of vision for the past 3 minutes? And they go, oh, wow. Well, yeah, I didn't even notice.
Right.
People don't notice cell phone towers, and especially the ones they disguise. I love this phenomenon because it's akin to the story of Christopher Columbus when he was first coming to the Americas. And he's in the Caribbean. The natives could not see the ships on the horizon because their brains did not comprehend it as anything.
Right.
And as the story goes, the elder sitting on the beach looking at the waves noticed something was wrong and looked up from the waves and sat there staring, and then eventually went, that's a very big boat.
Right.
And then started telling everybody, look, you see that thing? And they'd be like, no, what are you talking about? Just like with the cell phone tower.
Yep.
I wonder with COVID, the reason why so many more sightings happen is that people's time had been freed up. And for the average person who's walking down the street and not paying attention, they don't even notice the cell phone tower they're driving past. We all know what a cell phone tower is.
Right.
Yeah.
So if something was weird or in your periphery, you're thinking, I got to get to work. I got 20 minutes for lunch.
Yep.
COVID happens and everyone's just eyes open, bored, nothing going on. They start noticing things.
That's why I think we're in a existential renaissance post-COVID, because people had time to understand lots of new things, whether it's the government lying to you or having time to see things they didn't see before. And now once you see that one thing, it's like a domino effect with your perception. And all of a sudden, you're open to all these new things in your reality that you weren't open to before, which is what I meant in the beginning with Inverted World, and like,
yeah,
when we first talked about Inverted World, you told me the story of, I think it was skating you saw on a wall, right? Can you share that real quick? Because that's kind of like the whole origin story of the title Inverted World for you.
I was sitting at a cafe in New York, and I'm sitting at a counter facing the window, Starbucks. Across the street, there is a beige painted wall of some building, and there were black streaks making a mini rainbow.
Right.
I instantly know what that is. Those are called wall ride marks. When a skateboarder jumps and drags their board along the wall to ride on it, it creates those streaks.
Right.
And then I realized, 99.9% of people would see those streaks and they wouldn't even notice the streaks were there.
Right.
If I sat down and said, look at that wall, what do you see? Nobody would say, I see black streaks. They'd say, well, I see a wall. What do you see on the wall? They'd be like, I don't know. And then if I said, do you see the black streaks? They go, oh, yeah, of course. It doesn't register in their mind as something to point out.
Right. And
then if I asked them what it was, they'd say, I don't know. And so that's when I realized that we don't just live in the world. The world is an infinitely layered of all of these sub-dimensions, these inner worlds that some people cannot see. So when a skateboarder, for instance, sees a shipping distribution center, they don't see a bunch of trucks. They see how many stairs there are, how many rails there are. They see how high the loading dock is from the ground.
Yep.
The average person doesn't notice these things.
Right. We all see what we want to see and however it fits in our box.
Yeah, exactly. I was a furniture mover for 10 years, and I still see box trucks and loading areas and certain sized elevators in a different way. Other people would, because I knew, like, I could fit a bed frame in this one. I can't, or billiards table and stuff. It was funny when you brought up the title Inverted World to me. You told me that story, and I said that's really weird because for the past year I've been using the phrase Inverted World and things I've been writing about how society seemed like it flipped upside down. Good's evil, evil is good. In the way they sell it in society. That's something I never really thought about in terms of that phrase. So I was like, that is the perfect title.
Yeah, the way I saw it was there's the surface world, which is the shared reality we all talk about.
Yeah.
When you say something like there is a cafe, and then the best part is Los Angeles, because when you know, you know. In Los Angeles, there's hidden oil pumps all over the city.
Really?
Yeah. And so there are fake buildings, and as soon as someone tells you this, you start thinking about it, you are now in this inverted version of reality.
Yep.
There is the shared reality of everyone imagining Los Angeles buildings, urban sprawl.
Yep.
And then the people who have been informed now can see it.
Yep.
There was I don't know exactly where, but Google search hidden oil pumps of Los Angeles. There was like a church, and it has this massive steeple of sorts. And instantly, anybody who knows what the hidden oil pumps, you're like, that's an oil pump.
Incredible.
Made to look like a building.
Right.
There are... these buildings are totally fake. They'll look boarded up, and then you'll look them up online, and there's nothing there,
right?
Because they build a shell over the oil pumps and hide them.
Amazing.
Yeah, super wild. And then I think this is in the UK. Actually, there's a fake building because there's two houses, and then in between them, it's the London Underground. I think it's London.
Okay.
And so if you're in the building, to the left of you of the wall, it's nothing. But if you walk out the front door and look to your left, it's a wall of buildings. They created a fake facade so that no one can see the train is actually running through the neighborhood like that.
Perfect metaphor for the reality. And I grew up at the bottom of a landfill. and it's a beautiful hill now because it's capped. It's true. It's capped, so it looks like a hill. But you know, when a landfill's capped, it has these kind of like candy cane looking things that come out for the methane to leak out of. You know, most people come to my house when I grew up and be like, "Oh, it's a beautiful hill." I'm like, "That's actually a landfill that's got a skin of grass on top of it. That's actually trash beneath it."
And they golf on it now.
Oh yeah. But then I can travel anywhere now and be like, "That's a landfill." I immediately know like that's not a hill, that's a landfill.
But think about how crazy that is. That when you watch TV or watch a movie or watch a video, you are seeing surface level of reality.
Yes.
And every person knows something someone else doesn't that allows them to see beyond that layer.
Right.
Like the coffee cup in Game of Thrones.
You're talking when they left that one cup in by accident. Yeah. Or there's a I think Wesley. Shout out to Wesley. Sent me a picture recently of a person on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that Jim Henson helped produce back in the day. There's a guy in the background of the room who shouldn't be there. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. And you look for it. You know to look elsewhere. But who's our next caller?
Sure, we got Chris, I believe, coming in.
Sweet.
Chris, sorry that was. Are you there? Are you
What's
with
up,
us?
Chris?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool.
How are you?
Shane, how are you?
I am good. Thank you for calling in. What strange things have you encountered in this dark and wonderful world?
Thank you, Tim and Alex, for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you.
For telling my story of my friend.
Yeah.
Where do I start? Back in April of 2011, April 22nd, my friend, a good friend of mine, he was at Universal Studios, and he got into a ruckus with the cops. You know, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but they tased him to death.
Oh my God.
And that morning, now my friend was in Florida, obviously, the Universal Studios. He's from Detroit. I'm right outside Detroit. And that morning, I got sleep paralysis for the first time. And the weirdest thing about it was when I woke up, I couldn't move, but someone was holding my hand.
Wow.
It was just so odd. Like, why would I feel like this? And I was able to, when I got to be able to move, I noticed that there was a message on my phone. I checked it. It was my buddy's, his name's Adam Spencer Johnson, by the way. If you want to look up his story, you have to use his whole name. There was a message on my phone from his fiance. And she had told me that, you know, he had passed and all that stuff. And, you know, obviously devastating. But, yeah, that was the first paranormal experience. And I didn't really equate that with Adam's death. I just thought it was odd. And then several years later, I think it was August of 2017. Now, I got to say, I don't put a lot of weight on dreams, but this dream was very unusual. We were in a bedroom, and now me and Adam used to play a bunch of video games, but mostly we played SOCOM, a lot of SOCOM too. In his room, we'd have TV set up, we'd be hooked up online, and we were playing a video game in his room, or the room that we were in my dream. And it was a game that has never been out, and we were having a blast. And the room was done up like the best fanboy room ever. It had great movie posters, all the cool movies you ever wanted. And it had just an unusual light coming into the bedroom. It was a real white light. You know, it sounds cliche, but coming into the window, and you would think it would like be blindingly bright, but it wasn't. It was comforting. And then all of a sudden I realized, you know, Adam's dead. And I looked at him, I said, Adam, do you know you're dead? And he just looked at me and said, yeah, Chris, it's okay. And it was just weirdly comforting. But as soon as he said that, I got sucked out of my dream, back into reality. And that dream haunted me, you know, for lack of a better word. And it wasn't like a dream. Like I said, I don't put any weight on dreams, but there was a reality to that dream that just stuck with me. And
When you say it
For the
haunted
last
you,
few years, I've
Oh, sorry.
thought many times about that dream.
when if you don't mind me asking, when you say it haunted you, did you not find any comfort in it from seeing your friend, or that you could carry into your life and thinking about things like death? Or was it like the image of him that haunted you, that you could talk to someone that you know is dead?
The comforting made me feel like he's okay, even though he was tragically murdered. That he's okay, and it's okay to be dead. The haunting was the experience was wow, that was so real. I just, it almost wasn't a dream,
Yeah.
And then a couple weeks ago, close to his birthday, I think this is Tuesday the 23rd in April, and close to his death day too, I had another dream. And again, like I said, no weight on these dreams. But he used to tag things. He was a bit of a vandal. And, we would go around and he would spray paint his tag PAO for POW, and he would use the PlayStation buttons as the P, the square, but it had a stick on it. The A was a triangle. The O was the PlayStation circle. And we were in his red Escort that he had forever that would go around all the time. He loved adventures too. He'd be like, we're going on an adventure. And so in this dream, we were riding around in his car, getting out of it, tagging things. And this dream seemed like it lasted forever, like days. And he was the biggest movie fan buff I've ever known in my life. And while we were driving around, we were going through movie sets and stuff. And again, that light was back too. And so it was really weird, but fun. I was having a great time. And again, it hit me. Adam, you're dead. So I said this to him. And he says, yeah, Chris, it's okay. It's okay. And boom, I wake up again. And it was just like the last dream. Now, I've been dreaming for 43 years. So it's not like, I'm used to weird dreams. But these two dreams, were particularly intense, particularly real. Even though it wasn't real, it was like a dreamland. But
right, it's hard to, it's obviously,
what's that?
It's obviously hard to know what exactly is happening in our dreams. But his death, it sounds haunting. Obviously, your friend died in a tragic way, you said tased to death. It's a horrible thing. So your psyche's working that out, and or he is visiting you. I don't know. I as absurd as dreams can get, I do kind of sometimes take stock in them. I think they're sometimes like a portal to God, but they're absurd poems basically that you kind of have to decipher yourself. But I think it's rather beautiful that you saw your friend, as haunting as it is.
There's something I left out in the message to you, the email to you.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me after I wrote it to you. There was the night he had died. And this was told to me after I met his fiance. She came back up to Michigan. We had a talk about Adam. And the night he had died, she had gone to his sister's house. So this is sometime in the morning. Mm-hmm. And of course, they're upset. They're crying. And his sister's kids woke up. And they asked why they're crying. And they're trying to convey to some toddlers that their uncle had passed away. And one of the kids said, "No, Uncle Adam's right out there next to the tree," because they saw him in the backyard standing next to the tree. Again, it is what it is, but maybe he is communicating. I mean, he was a prankster. He loved to do things odd. Mm-hmm. And if he found a portal or a way, I think he would do that. He wasn't spiritual, but I think he would do that.
I like to think of it that way. Well, that's great. I really appreciate you calling in and sharing the story with us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you wanting to hear my story and wanting to hear about my friend,
Yeah, of course. It's honestly, it sounds cliche at times, but telling stories of those we lost is what keeps them alive. That's why I like talking about the people I've lost in my life, and all the weird, strange things that have happened with them since they've passed. So I think it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to talk about. And I hope you have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you, man. And as we pick up, right before we get to the next caller, I just want to say dreams. I read a story about a lady in a town that I was writing about. This story took place in the early 1800s. She moved up about an hour north of her town to go to a doctor so that she could get help for like headaches or something. And again, this is early 1800s. Her and her husband went up there by horse and carriage, and first night away from home, she wakes up with a crazy fever. And she tells her husband, our town burnt down. And she explained to him the map of the fire and how the fire moved from this building to that building. And the husband's like, all right, my wife is probably crazy, is what I'm imagining, he's saying. He goes outside where this doctor's office was, where she's been, hanging out. And there's a traveler. And the traveler tells him, the town burnt down. There's a huge fire an hour south, or however far away. And when they got back, it turned out to be exactly the buildings that she had dreamed about.
Wow.
And again, it could just be apocryphal, but I was reading these in the newspapers of the day, in the libraries that stored them, for over 100 years, or 100 years, I guess, at that point. So maybe they're just tricksters. Maybe there's just trolls. Early 19th century trolls, which is totally possible.
Yeah.
But I think there's some power in dreams if that
so.
Is real.
Yeah.
Who do we got?
Sure. We got Luke coming in. Luke, are you with us?
Hi, yes.
Spirit.
What's up, Luke? How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
What story do you have for us?
Yeah, so I got the story I've kind of been calling my Shadow Man story.
Ooh.
I like that.
Yeah, those are always spooky.
So, it kind of goes, I guess, in tandem with what I guess Tim was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly, I mean, with time kind of, looping upon itself.
Yep.
And I guess also touches on that article you were talking about in the beginning of the show with like spirits are drawn to a place where evil happens, because I don't think that's the case in this.
Right.
So, anyway, so I'll delve into it. Let me give a little backstory. So,
Great.
My grandparents and when my mom was 2, immigrated from Canada. 60 years worth of foresight, I guess, drove that decision back in the mid 60s. And they were
Smart.
on their way to California when they stopped in Arizona and, had intense prophetic foresight and decided, no California, let's do Arizona instead.
Wow.
So
Interesting.
they jumped around the Phoenix metro area from house to house, fixed up places and then moved and rented out the previous house until they landed in a house that my mom spent most of her childhood. And across the street from that house that they stopped in was a house that just kind of called to my mom. Like she said from whenever she saw it, that's the house I'm going to live in. So it was built in the late 50s and was one owner. The people who originally bought it lived there for almost about 30 years. So fast forward about the mid 80s, my mom became pregnant for the first time with my first sibling. And just so happened at the same time, that house in the cul-de-sac across the street went up for sale. And so my grandparents said, well, we want you to be, near us. And so we can see our grandchildren. And, if you need any help, we'll help you out. So they purchased the house and gave it to my mom and dad. And they raised me and my 2 older sisters there. So now kind of pivoting the story to me, having lived there, obviously almost my entire life until I moved out and got my own house, there was always kind of a shadowy presence that I noticed. And I can't even tell you the first time I've seen it, and I've seen it more times than I can count. It was always there throughout my life. I call it the Shadow Man. And you only ever see him out of your periphery. When you're sitting alone in the living room, as a kid, you're sitting on the couch watching TV. Often your periphery to the right was, the dining room and then the kitchen.
Yeah.
And this shadow of a man would walk from behind the fridge past the entrance to the kitchen behind a wall. And it was always the same. He always walked that exact same path from behind the fridge into the kitchen. It was very definitely a man, and the only discrepancy that it would ever make was if you looked at it, it would disappear as if it was never actually even there. Like, instantly gone. It's almost, I don't know, it kind of gaslights you in its own way.
Right.
But if you did not look at it, you could actually watch it travel from behind the fridge and then past the entrance to the kitchen behind the wall that separates the dining room and the kitchen. And at that point, it's out of your view, and it you wouldn't see it anymore. It would just kind of disappear.
Right.
And this happened my entire life, from childhood, adolescence, teenage years. I never thought much of it. That seems something crazy to say, but
It became a nonchalant part of your life.
yeah, I mean, it happened so much that it's just something that occurred. That's all it was.
Did you ever tell anybody at all, like in the beginning, or?
No, not really. At least not that I can remember.
Right.
Maybe early on, but not that I can remember.
Right.
But where the story gets kind of interesting, I would say, is one summer we had my dad was from Minnesota, and so we traveled up there to visit some relatives on their farm up in rural Minnesota, and we were gathered around a campfire at night. Due to the jet lag, we were always up way later than the rest of the family. But as the campfire stories do, it came across the topic of the paranormal, and someone posed the question: have any of you personally experienced anything like paranormal? And there was a few stories, vague and uninteresting, but the one that really shocked me was my dad piped up, and he said, I've never really thought much of it. I've never really told anyone. But he says, ever since we moved into the house, on the cul-de-sac that we still lived in at that point, he says, when you're sitting alone in the living room, a shadow of a man would walk from behind the fridge into the kitchen towards the back door. He says it would always just do that consistently. It never did anything else. I know for a fact I never spoke with him about that.
Wow.
Wow.
And he described to a T exactly what I had seen my entire life.
That's crazy.
So I had to sit there with that knowledge, just kind of tucked back in the back of my head, and process that a bit that night.
Did you tell him? Like, hey.
Yeah, I told him. I I told him eventually. I don't remember if I told him that night, but we did have the conversation. It's like I've seen it too, and
Wow.
I mean, there's nothing we can do.
Right.
They've been lived there for so long. My mom still lives there. It's been 40 something years, but nothing's ever happened. It just wants to make its little journey from the fridge to the kitchen, and that's that.
Just grabbing
Wow,
a late
she's-
night snack.
Yeah, she's going about its day.
But my mom is actually, she still lives there, and I brought it up. It's she's the second owner of the house, and she actually knew the original owners, and they did not die in the house. And being built in the late 1950s, nothing bad ever really, or at least newsworthy, ever happened in that house. So I don't know what this being is that seems to be kind of perpetually trapped in its journey in that house is.
Well, according to Tim's theory, it might just be thinking the same thing about you and your family.
Right.
Why are these people just trapped in this house?
Like Beetlejuice.
You know?
That's what I was wondering with that, was if it's, time looping back on itself, why is it this one exact action over and over for 30 years now, if not more?
Yeah. The people who subscribe to stone tape theory would be like, well, maybe this is the moment before this person was slaughtered or murdered, and something horrible happened. But, who knows? It'd be another one of those things that'd be fun to kind of look into with a bunch of people. find the area. Obviously, we don't want to dox your family though, so it's tough with that. But it's the thing that I enjoy doing is looking into the history. What was this place before it was a house? It can turn up a lot of weird answers or just more questions, which is typically the case. But did your mom ever see the entity?
I don't know if I've even discussed it with her. I did discuss it with my sisters, and they said they've seen it. One of them, doesn't. I don't believe in any of that kind of a person, so
right.
She doesn't really get in much into the discussion. The other one says she has seen it, and she does believe it's a man, but she like I did before my dad told that story around the campfire. She's trying to rationalize. Although there's a wall there, trick of the light.
Right.
Even though it happens all times of the day or night, it doesn't matter. So
right.
It's just something I can't explain.
Well, that's amazing. I appreciate the story. It's things like this that make me think the world is obviously mysterious and magical. And I think of what I saw as a kid growing up with the shadow hand. I don't know what it is. I'd have a hard time believing in coincidences. I think there's some greater cosmic thing happening. But I appreciate you calling in and telling us the story.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, man. That's wild. I don't know. I feel like there's things. I think Tim's theory of interdimensional beings is probably more along the lines of what's going on with that. But we got to look into these things.
When he brought up how the Shadow Man's doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Trapped in this moment. What if you have these two folds of space-time, and imagine on this sheet of fabric you've got from 1980 to 2024, and then you've got this other ripple that is, let's just say, I don't know, 1964, and the ripple is moving across the line.
Yep.
So as you move forward in time, that other fabric dimension is a single moment.
Yep.
The whole sheet of time moving. So you're actually just witnessing the same time, and you're both moving through time. Like, you know what I mean?
And what if this has something to do with us actually being in a black hole already? Do you have that video I sent you of the black hole simulation? I don't know if I sent it. There's a recent simulation of a black hole because people are talking about how the sun might actually be a black hole now. It's a new theory in science.
Ian was talking about that.
Yeah. Who knows? They were saying the center of the universe is a black hole. Now they're saying there's black holes just everywhere you look. You can't see them.
I don't know exactly about that theory. I know that there's white hole theory.
What's this one?
The other side of a black hole.
Oh, jeez.
So the idea being that the Big Bang was, we assume the Big Bang because we're seeing everything expand, like the universe is expanding. Mm-hmm. But what if what's actually happened is that a hole was punched through space-time and it's just inflating like a balloon?
I know. This is why I think about CERN all the time, because they're afraid that it's creating other black holes at the bottom of the Earth. Well, it technically...
But they just disintegrate.
Technically, they're creating microscopic black holes beneath the border of Switzerland and France. But the people at CERN won the lawsuit when the judge said these black holes are actually fine.
So when making a video game, if I was gonna make, you ever play a video game, like you ever play Galaga?
No.
Do you know what it is?
Nope. I haven't played anything since like Mario.
Yeah, Galaga's before Mario.
Okay, so I missed it.
little spaceship on the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
And there's little aliens that come down.
Yeah.
And you fire missiles at them.
Yeah. I have played something like that. If not,
like arcade game.
When I would make video games, and I don't know if this is true for every programmer, you have your display, your field of view. Mm-hmm. Outside of it, I would store objects that don't move.
Right.
And so I could easily move them in when I'm developing. And so what people found is sometimes when you're playing a first-person shooter, if you put in a cheat code for no clipping, being able to move through walls, you might leave the physical space of the game that you're supposed to be in. And once you're outside of it, you can see weird things just outside the room.
Right.
But if I was making a game like Galaga, where you have like a spaceship moving up and down or left and right, what I would do is you create a placeholder object that has a movement function, and then you create objects at this object's coordinates.
Right.
So imagine if outside, those in the video game, Mario, for instance, he can't come outside his world.
Right.
His track is the track he's on.
Yep.
If he goes too low, he dies.
Yep.
If he runs out of time, he dies.
Right.
If he gets touched, he dies.
Yep.
It's weird.
Yeah.
But outside of the field of view, perhaps you could call it another dimension, are objects you can't see, spawning and disappearing and blinking in and out of existence. I wonder if our reality is like that. We can only function within these dimensions, and then ghosts or extra dimensional beings are basically in like this null space.
Well, like dreams.
Well, it could be one part of it.
Yeah.
But I think that goes along with what you're saying about with Christopher Columbus, you know, and the way the Indians
You can't
saw.
see it.
They can't see it. Or was it Kevin, our last caller, saying like his sister was rejecting the whatever he was seeing, you know, but he could see it. Or your dream, you have a dream like that I was telling about the fire that lady dreamt about. Yeah. She has something that allows her to see through the facade of reality, you know, and there's probably, I think when you talked about it, I think there's a painting by Michelangelo where demons are carrying him. And I feel like that's partly how society actually might look.
I worry about so many people that, you know, they listen to this Joe Rogan guy. And I tell you, he's a
what's that guy's deal?
He's a bad influence. I'll tell you why. He's actually a really good influence, but I worry that when he talks about DMT in such a positive way, if it is something that allows you to perceive the veil between worlds or whatever it is, weak, stupid people, and I mean that with all due respect, but low-functioning individuals who take DMT are going to get whisked away by demons. Yeah. Or darkness or dark entities or whatever it is. Yeah,
I've unfortunately spent a long time messing around with certain substances like that, and I don't know. You know, I spent a lot of time in the dark, and I've seen other people not leave that dark after trespassing into that area. And there's other drugs that are way worse. You know,
I'll tell you. These are all the stories I've told on Tim Kessler before, but you know, I'll tell this one here. That's relevant. I'll give a quick version of it. Yeah. I knew these two guys who were skateboarders. They were Christians. They never preached Christianity while they were skateboarding, but they had, you know, I guess you'd call it paraphernalia, either wearing a cross for obvious reasons or having an earring. Right. They had, I was hanging out with one of the guys one day and I asked him, you know, because there was a controversy. The haters were claiming they were preaching and they weren't. And it was just like, leave the guys alone. Let them be Christian, whatever. They're skateboarders. We're having a good time. And I asked this one guy, he's like a punk rock dude, skin tight, crazy hair, all that, how he became Christian. I was like, were you always like, you grew up Christian? He's like, no. He said that a few years before he was a drug addict. He was partying, drinking, doing any drug you can think of, hooking up with women at random, and just did not care about anything. Right. And he was in a bad place. One day he said he was in the woods and they were partying. Goes to sleep, did a bunch of drugs. He did a bunch of drugs, got drunk, goes to sleep, wakes up. He walks away from his group, take a leak. As he's taking a leak, he hears a booming voice from within his chest saying, "Why are you doing this?" And he instantly has an adrenaline rush. He freaks out. He's like, what's happening? And the voice asks him again, "Why are you doing this?" And he said to himself, I don't know. And then it told him, stop. He immediately started looking for answers to understand this experience he had. And he found Christianity. And they explained to him, you had a divine intervention. Right. I mean, this is something, you know, it took you going to a really dark place. Some people only wish they could get it, but some people don't need it. Yep. Yeah. He told me, he's like, I don't expect you to believe me. No one believes me. But it happened, and here I am. And since he found Christianity, his life had been cleaned up. Yep. He was working at a business. He had his own place. He was clean, sober. He had friends. Like, his life got good. And I was like, I believe you. I'm not saying it was God. I don't know. I'm just saying I believe you when you tell me that happened to you. Right. That's all Yeah. I don't think you're lying to make this story up. You got clean. Exactly. Who knows any better? I mean, it was my exposure to absolute evil that made me realize after years of atheism, there's got to be, in this world, there's a balance of good and evil, death and rebirth. And that was, in my brain, it was like, well, there's got to be an ultimate good then. Because it can't just be evil. There is evil too. And there is absolute evil. When I was younger, I didn't think so. Yeah. I thought it was just, I remember being like 18 and thinking, no, it's not good and evil. It's conflicted interest and different worldviews. Right. And now I'm older and I'm like, there is evil. It's so simple as just that. Yeah. It's good versus evil. I mean, there's obviously a lot of other things going on, but it boils down to that. And I think a lot of the reason people don't believe in that anymore is because it's just become cliche. Right. They watered down the idea of good and evil, but it's just that. But I do wonder if like our political predicament is that it's becoming we're at the apex of the wave where good and evil flattens out into the small things of life, and there's smaller evil actions building up, and now we're at the point where there's tremendous good and tremendous evil crashing like a wave. I think that's the cycle of human nature. Yeah. And that's what always happens. That's why we've seen world wars, crazy. I mean, look, the things that this country's gone through, just here, the Civil War, all these things, like
we've experienced this wave where it ebbs and flows. And right now, I do think it's heading up.
Have you ever watched that documentary, What the Bleep Do We Know?
Mm-mm.
Very popular in the Zeitgeist era, Zeitgeist, Loose Change, these viral videos.
Okay.
And this is one that popularized the double slit experiment,
Yep.
where like your observation of reality can impact reality.
Right.
In it, they have this explanation of higher and lesser dimensional entities. And the narrator just explained something called flatland. He said, imagine there are beings that live in a two-dimensional plane. They only know left, right, forward, and backward. They have no concept of up and down. Those are foreign words to them. Mm-hmm. And so a three-dimensional being looking down above them exists in a dimension that they can't comprehend. Yep. And he shows this little Pac-Man looking guy, and he says, hello there. And the little thing says, what? Where is this sound coming from? The sound is coming from within my body. Because to the little flat circle, the sound is going straight down into it and emanating from within its core, out of its being. Yep. And it can't comprehend the direction from which the sound is coming. So I saw that before this guy told me about what he said, and I'm like, he was being spoken to from a higher plane, whatever that is.
Like lightning hitting him. Yeah, it's wild. And the other thing with the political nature that we're in terms of, I see it as a cult of nihilism, is that language has died. So now we're left without any reference points, shared reference points in terms of describing our own reality, which is why reality is dissolving, which is making it worse, which is why I think the spike in insanity is happening across the board. Social media too accelerates it.
If reality really is affected by observation, then does worldview build upon reality?
Yes.
And if that's true, then does that mean that there was a point at which magic existed?
Yeah.
Exorcisms, magic, spirituality, conjuration, manifestation were normal, perceived, and the worldview of people, and so the world was that way. But as the collective worldview began to shift away or change, it also changed the fabric of reality, breaking our ability to connect with that kind of.
That's why I think materialism is also the highest form of modern religion now. Everyone's so connected to their things that they forget that world.
And so what if the real reason the Malthusians want to depopulate the planet is because too many people have rejected the power of being and perception, locking reality into the state. And these cult-like, whether they believe it or not, powerful individuals, they believe that if we can reduce the population, we can alter the perspective of individuals to the point where reality itself will bend.
I believe we're under the war of reality. That's the biggest, other than good and evil, is war of reality. And you can look back at things of Mao in China during the Cultural Revolution, destroying art and language. Yeah. Because he's like, if I can destroy their culture and their history and their actual sense of perception, I got them. I own them.
But in a more metaphysical sense, if there's one human being in existence, and let's say that reality is shaped by the observation of being, this one person's observations and expectations have made reality what it is. If you add another person, both of their observations are now competing for what really is. And whoever has the dominant willpower will manifest the version of reality. Now you have 8 billion people, all of their interests, worldviews, and observations competing with each other, solidifying reality as a block that cannot be changed any longer.
Yeah.
Which is why we can look at the same piece of evidence from you and someone else and walk away with totally different interpretations. It's like art. It's like modern. It's like reality's modern art now. It's deconstructed.
But I mean to the extent that if everyone on the planet believed you could manifest lightning from your hand, then they could.
It's like hive mind.
Yeah, like alchemy. Like they used to believe in alchemy.
Like maybe
still do.
Maybe those things actually existed.
Yeah.
It's just that with reality being a derivative of observation,
I believe that.
People do not believe it's possible, so they've locked it out of reality.
I believe that. Because I think we're too locked to modern materialism. Yeah. And it's divorced us from the magic.
But I'm not saying I know. I'm just saying what if.
Well, I think it's a good what if. Do we have other callers? I know we're going a little over. Oh, sweet. I'd love to hear. I'd love to get the caller in.
Let's get her in.
Yeah.
Mary Lynn.
Oh, sweet.
Last one of the night. Are you with us?
Hi, Mary.
Lynn.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks for waiting. And we appreciate you wanting to tell us a story.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So take it away. Tell us what strange thing has happened to you.
All right. Well, it started when I met my husband. His wife had passed away about a year before. He's an antique dealer. My son was real young at the time. He was about 3. We got married and I moved into his house, and it was this big, beautiful house with, wonderful antiques. And I couldn't believe I lived there. It was so beautiful, but it was also kind of creepy, had a real creepy vibe, because I think he collected a lot of macabre things.
Right.
There was a lot of creepy things in the house.
Like, can you describe a few of those?
There was, he had a Tibetan monk skull.
Okay.
It was like all lined in silver. It was used for ceremonies. He had stuff like, shrunken heads.
Wow.
A lot of artifacts, African, Colombian, Native American War Club, Civil War amputation kits. He had a whole medical case of all this Civil War
bone saws.
tools, and yes, lots of bone saws I've seen in my life.
Yeah.
And so, it had a creepy vibe, and there was definitely activity in the house. I especially would see these 3 apparitions. I saw them a lot. There was a woman and 2 children, and they were dressed like in Victorian clothing. And sometimes the woman would be holding a baby, and sometimes she wouldn't. And the thing about it is, like, they didn't have faces. Like, I could see their clothing. I could see what they were wearing. Sometimes I could see their eyes, and they just didn't have mouths. So, and on top of that, my son was seeing, like, he saw a lady in a tree, and he saw, he was very little at the time, so it was very believable. And like, things were getting thrown at me, like Legos and Hot Wheel cars. And since his wife had passed away, I thought maybe it was her ghost and that she just hated me. She didn't want me in her house. A lot of her things were still there. And so not long after that, he was given an opportunity to open a large antique mall. And one morning I was there by myself. I was doing work, and I had never explored the building. It was really big. It was 10,000 square feet, historical building. It was a hardware store, and at the turn of the century. And so I went down into the basement. I had never been down there, and I was looking around, and I looked, and there's like this hole in the wall. It was a brick wall, and it was purposely made. You could tell because it was like an archway. And when I looked in there, I saw a demon. It looked me right in the face. I was probably 3 feet away from it.
Can you explain what you saw?
It was, it's so embarrassing, but it was a lizard man. It was a reptilian.
Okay.
And at the time, this was like 15, 17 years ago. I mean, I knew there was demons and I knew there was angels. I didn't know about lizard men at the time. Of course I do now, because everybody seems to talk about it now.
Because the Clintons, clearly.
Thank you. Yes. And it looked at me, and its eyes got big, like it was surprised that I could see it.
Oh, weird.
It looked shocked.
Oh, that's what you were talking about.
Wow. Was it, when you say lizard, was it a certain color? Like, did you see certain types of eyes? What were the details of it?
It was like blue greenish, scaly. It looked like it was crouching, because I could see its knees kind of up at the side of its head. But this whole, later on I found out this was a room down in this basement. We have no idea what it was ever used for. Where I saw the lizard, it was like in this room. It had a dirt floor. It had these weird stairs that went to nowhere.
Interesting.
So,
maybe a room for coal back in the day, or
possibly
maybe an ice
possibly
type of house.
I'm not sure. There was nothing in it except we found a poison bottle, an old poison bottle.
What? Did it have like that triple X on it, or?
Yeah, Calling me
What?
out.
And a skull, and it was a big glass jug, and it had a paper label. It was very old.
Whoa.
Paranormal investigators ended up going in there because I never would go in there, and they found
Whoa.
that.
Interesting.
So, mm-hmm. So,
Did,
after that,
yep.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah. What happened after you saw this weird lizard being?
Well, immediately after that, I ran. I've never been so scared in my entire life because I was like, that's a demon. You know, that was a freaking demon. And I felt like it attached to my back, and I also felt like something was swooping over my head.
Wow.
And I was just like, help me, Jesus, help me, Jesus. I didn't know what was happening.
Right.
And I just felt totally insane. But after I saw that, then, you know, the activity in my home, it was hurting us. Something was hurting us, like physically hurting. It was scratching us. It hurt my son.
Is this happening
very
while you're asleep, or is this throughout the day?
Yeah,
Both?
yes. And well, what happened to my son? We were awake and we saw the whole thing.
And what was that?
He was very little, and he was in the kitchen, and he just screamed out of the blue and grabbed his side, like he was hurting, and he ran. So we chased him to see like what's wrong. We didn't know what was wrong, and he was like, my side, and we like lifted his shirt where he was saying it hurt, and I'm like, we don't know what's going on. There's nothing there. Like what's wrong? What happened? And right before our eyes, like this red well appeared, and then it like turned into this burn.
Wow.
Like we saw it happen. So, you know, of course, then it was getting bad. You know, my husband was getting hurt. I was getting these little bites on my legs. It looked like little teeth bites. My sister even got scratched on her neck, you know. So I ended up calling in like a paranormal group to help me figure out what was going on.
What was there? Did they have a solution or any type of answer for you?
Well, they did a dual investigation of my house and our store at the same time. They tried to synchronize some EVP sessions. And when they came to my house, they brought 2 authors of paranormal books, and I didn't know at the time, they brought a clergyman who I didn't know he was a deliverance minister. I wasn't aware of that. I thought he was just coming in to bless my house. And that's not what happened.
What happened there?
Well, he started asking me a lot of questions like, have you ever dabbled in the occult, Ouija board, witchcraft? And I had done that when I was younger, when I was a teenager. And so he made me write out this weird contract, like renouncing everything I did. And he just had me in tears. I was just crying. I didn't know. And I kept saying, did I do this? Is what I did when I was a teenager, is this what's causing my family to get hurt? Is this my fault? And out of the blue, he started screaming and pinned me back, and he started screaming at me like, say your name, tell me your name. I think he was trying to call a demon out of me. And
Wow.
a name did come out of my mouth. And they did research it, and I said the name Payman, which is a demon that they found.
When you say they found, how does that work? They looked into certain records
names
and
of
other
demons.
Okay.
The historians were very good at digging up a lot of information, and Haman apparently is a king, one of Lucifer's kings, and he's one of Lucifer's most loyal kings, and he's in charge of a legion of 200, I believe, if I remember correctly. And you know, the whole, like, I hate to call it an exorcism, because I don't think I was possessed, but a lot of weird things happened. At one point, he said, I stab you with this holy book. And it hurt. It felt like I was actually being stabbed. And of course, this whole thing is being filmed by all the ghost hunters, and you know, everybody had a camera. And I started getting really sick. Like I felt like I was on acid. His face started morphing. Felt like I could just see his face in a vortex. Um, he I don't know. I just got really, and then I got really sick. I
Right.
remember going into the bathroom and throwing up. And as I was throwing up, my cat just started screaming like it was being tortured. And I remember screaming, "What's wrong with my cat?"
Wow.
And I came out and they said, well, somebody said to me, "Well, we think you were throwing up a demon." And the demon was looking for a place to go. And it tried to go into your cat.
Oh boy.
Now, I don't know about that.
Right.
I really don't. But I can tell you my cat died shortly after that.
Whoa.
Oh my goodness. Good
Yeah,
Lord.
mm-hmm.
Did you watch the video that they filmed of you with this
I
exorcism?
did one time.
And did you
One time
notice
I was
anything
able to
different
watch
about
it.
yourself? Like, did you have like different memories about it in terms of when you watched it as opposed to what was happening in the moment?
I don't remember at all because it lasted like 45 minutes. And I remembered
Wow.
bits and pieces. I cried a lot. I remember I cried a lot because it was just making me feel real bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
About what I had done, and I needed to renounce it. And also, I don't know what it was. I hypnotized? Was I possessed? There was one point where he told an investigator, go get her a drink of water and put it in a plastic cup. And he followed her into my kitchen, and they came back with a drink of water, and I drank the water. I didn't think anything of it. A couple days later, she called me and she said, he put holy water in that glass. And I drank it. I don't know if it's water he just blessed or
Right.
if it came from like a font in a church, but I ended up talking to a priest not too long ago who said that could have killed me. I don't know if that's true. I'm not Catholic.
Right.
But he said that people are like dipping their hands or something in it, and if it came out of a church, I could have been sick.
Wow. Did it work? Did you see this entity anymore? Have any more problems?
Oh yeah, it never stopped.
So you
never
went through all
stopped.
that just for it to keep going. Sheesh.
It just kept going. Yes, it did. Mm-hmm.
And lost your cat.
And lost your cat. Did it stop? Like, did it stop at a certain point? Did you have to move?
Well, actually, it got bigger. I ended up becoming a paranormal investigator with the team that helped me, and of course, that just makes things worse. The more you go out and look for these things, the worse it's going to get. The
Yep.
more they're going to follow you.
Yep.
And I studied with a priest. I don't know if you know, I think his name is Bishop Long. He was on one of the TV shows as an exorcist.
Okay.
And I tried to take demonology with him, and he warned us at the beginning, like, you're going to get attacked spiritually, going to be bad. And he wasn't kidding. And I dropped out of that class. And yeah, eventually it just got so overwhelming with the store and people coming in, and a lot of people wanted to try to make money off of it, and I ended up just shutting it all down. Yeah, I quit the store. I shut down all my social media, and I just quit talking to everybody. I just had to.
Did it resolve itself?
Well, I'm a born again Christian now.
Mm-hmm.
I follow Jesus now, and no, like, things never do stop, but I know how to deal with them. I know
Wow.
how to ignore them now when I see things, and it is what it is. I think things are everywhere, and there's really nothing we can do to stop it. We just have to learn. I think that you just can't acknowledge them, because once they see you can see them, it just gets worse.
They find a weak point in your defenses and they slip on in. I think some people are just more vulnerable to it, or have less of a defense up for these things, which is a gift for some and a curse for others, and probably a bit of both. That's some story. I'm glad you at least found a way to deal with it. Because some people get consumed by these things, you know?
It wasn't easy. I went a little crazy.
I'm sure. Did you ever see the lizard being again?
No, I didn't. But it's funny because after I did tell the story, I had people come to me in my town and tell me, "Hey, I saw that too." You know, so I felt a little better. I wasn't the only one who saw it.
Yeah, you should feel better that it's not something coming from within you. You know, hopefully if other people are seeing it, hopefully it's just something that's terrorizing the landscape.
Yeah.
Well, Mary Lynn, I appreciate the phone call. I'm sorry for everything you've gone through. That's a crazy story.
Crazy story.
And I hope you just keep with it, and God bless.
Oh, thank you.
Bye, Mary Lynn.
Have a great one. When I say I was a furniture mover, it was for an antiques gallery, and people used to come to the antique store and want to buy mirrors from rooms where people died in because they believed the mirrors trapped the souls. Wow. So there's a whole collector market for people who wanted those mirrors.
How do you?
I don't know.
Souls?
Well, I don't know if they wanted to free the souls.
I'm saying like we should free them.
Yeah, we should break the glass, but then that's bad. Well, unless that's demon propaganda.
Oh God.
You know, because they're like, don't break the glass. It's actually not bad luck. It's good luck. You're freeing these demons. But yeah,
the demons think that your life, the more souls you capture, the more you can bargain and gain. So it's bad luck for you because if you have the souls, you can barter them.
That's right. This is a new currency. It's not Bitcoin. It's trap souls.
Everybody in the chat, so many people are saying like, how do I call in?
Oh, cool. Awesome. So
how do they do it?
You can hit me up on Twitter at Shane Cashman. Right now the email you can use is shane@timcast.com, although that's going to be changing soon. But follow me at Shane Cashman on Twitter, and I'll be putting out calls every day for people to call in.
But we're not just doing ghost stuff either.
Well, and it's honestly anything. We could talk cryptids. We could talk disappearances. I've talked to people who have military abductions, my labs. Anything that you've encountered with the strange and unexplained, we want to talk about. Ghost, I almost said UAPs. I'm not falling for it. UFOs, anything's game. We want to hear about it. So Definitely hit me up on Twitter, and we'll try to, obviously we won't get everyone in every episode, but if we miss you, I'll put you on a list to get you first on the next show. I believe we got everyone in today though. We went a little over, but I'm glad we got everyone in.
Great first show, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you for all the stories. Thank you for listening. We're really excited about this. Alex, do you have anything you want people to find you online?
Sure. I am now on X. I am Alex Ayala.
We forced you on. We forced you on X.
I'm there.
After all these years. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was a good spooky Mother's Day.
Yeah, it was great.
We somehow survived all of the hauntings of this room.
Yes.
For now.
Oh my gosh. For now.
The basement.
Oh, the basement's because
there's a hole in the wall that looks like it was hand carved out. That goes into this weird small room where someone was doing something.
I mean, remember this house before it looked nice? Like what it looked like?
Yeah.
Before they turned into a somewhat respectable place.
Wait, how long has this house been here?
1850s or 1840? I don't know.
I think it's
it might even be 1827 or something.
Yeah. The basement's crazy.
I might be able to actually look.
Yeah, the basement of this place is super weird. The attic is also
information weird. If anyone died in here.
So the basement's
I mean, after 200 years.
We could try.
Maybe like
I'm going to try, actually. I'm totally going to try. I'll just go to get some information on the house.
You do that.
Without doxing us. But they saw the video. You don't want to come in. There's a giant tarantula crawling on the roof.
Oh, do we need to go back to that?
Yeah, if you want. The attic, when we first got here, before anything was redone, was entirely scratched up by some rabid animal. I don't know what that animal was, but the walls in the attic were terrifying. It was like someone had been held hostage and clawing their way out of this attic for a century.
No, thank you.
That's where I'll be after the show.
Can we bring a Ouija board in one day, though?
Oh no, I don't mess with that.
We're not gonna mess with that?
You want demons?
Well, okay. How about a psychic?
Yeah, I want to bring a psychic. I got a lot of people lined up that I want to bring in and talk to.
Yeah. I think people would like the Ouija board. Just saying.
I'm not messing with that.
Okay.
You heard these people?
Oh.
Did you hear Mary Lynn?
Don't be a puss.
Did you hear Mary Lynn? She messed with a Ouija board and perhaps opened herself up. I talked to a lot of other people with similar stories. They mess with that type of.
You walk through cemeteries.
That's different. That's respect for the dead. I'm not trying to communicate with
I guess
them.
I don't know the difference.
Yeah, we got to get Alex on board here. Tim, did you find anything?
No. because with the new buildings, the records are all changing.
Yeah.
So this is basically, it was an abandoned property for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a large property, and the people who inherited it decided to just build a new house to live in and abandoned the old barn house. So it was slowly just rotting and falling apart. It was bad. And so there's a tree knocked over.
Right.
The nasty. And I thought it was condemned. And after inspection and everything, they said, actually, the cost of fixing it and destroying it are probably the same.
Yeah.
Like tear down and removal and everything is going to cost the same as fixing it. And we were like, really?
I love
So
that
we
you're
fixed
like,
it.
we're gonna buy this.
Tim was like, we have the perfect place for your podcast.
It was.
It was. It is. It is. It's amazing. And there's tombstones out here, and
Yep.
also a
There is-
skeleton
there-
or two of old cars. I don't know if you've even seen those.
There's skeletons of
We'll
cars in
see
the
what
woods.
we want to see.
I'll show you this sometime.
It's a
Yeah.
huge property. It's wooded, mostly
yeah,
wooded.
yeah.
And there's an old cemetery that it was like a family plot or something.
Yeah.
And it's just fallen into complete disrepair.
Yeah.
So it's not good. And the gravestones are like knocked over and damaged. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, we should work on those.
Yeah, but the one thing I think will be really cool is with the I don't know what's exactly been planned out, but with memberships having like investigative teams.
Yeah, yeah. So the scanner website, people sign up for that. We're gonna have this kind of community where, like I was saying with the Taco Bell story, you know, where we could maybe band together and just kind of find out some answers, or you know, just have a list of history of what's going on with this place. Why did that person experience a demon?
That'd be
fun to
super
do.
cool. Like people, you know, after a story is told.
Yep.
Some people might say like, we want to know what this Taco Bell is.
Yep.
And then you get a handful of people to like,
Going
here's
to
when
that
it was
Taco
built, here's what
Yes.
happened, here's what we think it is.
Yes.
All digital though. We don't want people to showing up and freaking out.
I know it's
Taco
gonna be
Bell.
tough because I don't want to. Some people might work at these places or live there, and I want to dox these places. So it's gonna have to be. We'll be careful when it comes to these investigations. But I think that'd be fun to do that. And but yeah, Tim, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Fun
you.
first episode.
This is great.
Where can they find you?
At Timcast.
Yeah, at Timcast. And you have a show. Timcast IRL.
Yes, sir.
Great show. I was on Friday. That was a really fun episode.
Yeah.
Where are you on Fake Clouds, by the way? A lot of people were asking.
Well, there's both real and fake.
Perfect answer.
Did I told
That's
you my
it.
fake cloud story, right? When I was in Vegas
Alaska?
when I was 16.
No.
It looked like, you see a contrail come off a plane?
Yes. Yep.
It looked like it had been drawn with contrails, and it was in the shape of a diamond. And like my dad and my brother, we looked up and we were like, what is
How did
that?
it get there?
That's a cloaking cloud, Alex.
Yep.
That's the kind of cloud they make to cloak. There's
Cover
hologram
something up.
clouds, cloaking clouds. It's probably covering up some secret military project.
Someone said it's a natural phenomenon. It happens all the time. And I'm like, happens all the time doesn't mean,
Just because it happens all the time
it's
doesn't
like
mean
that
the military doesn't know.
that
they're
Family Guy
always doing
joke where the bar burns down a day after the guy buys the insurance, and they're like, don't you find that weird? And the insurance salesman goes, no, it happens all the time.
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because it happens all the time doesn't mean it's not weird.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. This has been a blast.
Been a blast.
Really fun first episode. We'll see you next Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Hit me up online. We'll share your stories. We're going to talk. And it's a beautiful, dark, and scary, amazing world. We'll see you then.